poor boy shielded. Biker's daughter from bullies. What bikers did next was unbelievable. Ethan Cole didn't swing first. He didn't swing at all. He just stepped in front of the new girl and took the hit like a door taking a boot. The hallway froze. 3 seniors had her trapped by the trophy case, smiling like this was entertainment. Ethan's voice came out steady anyway. Walk away. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. Break! Mason Klein's fist snapped Ethan's head sideways. Blood filled Ethan's mouth, hot and metallic. Phones lifted, whispers spread, nobody moved. The girl behind him hugged her backpack to her chest, eyes wide, breathing fast. Ethan didn't know her name. He only saw Tyler Reese's hand reaching for her shoulder, casual and confident, like he had a right. You think you're a hero now? Mason asked, rubbing his knuckles. His Letterman jacket hung open like he owned the air. Ethan's hands shook. Not fear, adrenaline. He'd promised himself all morning, no trouble. He had a shift after school. His mom needed her meds. Trouble meant lost hours. Lost hours meant candles in the kitchen again. Just leave her alone, Ethan said. Tyler laughed. It's Dalton, man. You don't just let a Dalton stroll in here like she's normal. Dalton. The word landed strange, like a last name was supposed to mean something in a school hallway. A couple of kids in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, like they'd heard it on the news or in a warning. Mason leaned in until Ethan could smell mint gum and arrogance. Move. Ethan didn't. Mason hit him again. Ethan saw white sparks, but he stayed upright. Mason liked that. He liked an audience. Say you're sorry, Mason said, grabbing Ethan by the hoodie. Ethan spit blood on the floor. No. Tyler shoved Ethan into the lockers. Metal banged. A pain shot through Ethan's shoulder. He heard someone whisper, "Teacher," and another voice answer, "Not for this." Shoes clicked nearby, slowed, and kept going. That hurt worse than the punches. Mason leaned past Ethan, close to the girl's face. "Tell your daddy you made friends," he murmured. The girl flinched, but her chin lifted. "My name is Harper," she said, voice thin but clear. Mason chuckled. "Harper Dalton, that's cute." Gage Dalton didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The garage went quiet the second he looked at the bruise on Harper's arm. "What happened?" he asked, low. "To my daughter." Harper stood straighter like posture could hold the fear in. "First day. 3 seniors cornered me by the trophy case. Mason Klein, Tyler Reese, and a third guy. Tall, quiet. They kept saying my last name like it was a joke." Gage's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Harper swallowed. "Because it's mine." A few men shifted. Leather vests, patches, cold stares. One of them muttered something under his breath until Gage's glance shut him down. "They grabbed me," Harper said. Tyler put his hand on my shoulder. Mason leaned in and said, "Tell your daddy you made friends." That line hit the room like a slap. Gage's jaw tightened, but he stayed still. "And the kid?" Harper's voice steadied. "Ethan. He stepped in. Didn't know me. Didn't care who I was. He just stood there. They hit him twice, tried to make him apologize." Gage repeated the name like he was engraving it. "Ethan who?" "Cole," Harper said. "He told me to go to class like he was the one trying to keep things calm." Gage looked at a younger member leaning against a bike stand, phone already in hand. Clean beard, calm eyes. "Rook?" Rook straightened. "Yeah, Prez." "Find Ethan Cole," Gage said. "Find those boys' parents. Find out why my kid's school protects them. Quiet." Rook nodded once, already typing. Gage turned to the room. "Nobody goes near that school wearing a cut. Nobody runs their mouth. We don't make noise we can't control. You hear me?" A chorus of yeses answered him. He looked back at Harper. "You're staying with Lena tonight." "I'm not a child," Harper snapped, then immediately regretted it. Gage's voice stayed level. "This isn't about your age. It's about them thinking they can touch you to touch me." Harper's eyes flicked away, angry at the truth. Gage stepped closer, gentler now. "You did right coming here." Harper's throat tightened. "I didn't want you to do something stupid." His mouth twitched at one corner. "Stupid gets people dead. We're not doing stupid." Lena guided Harper into the SUV like it was routine. "You hungry?" she asked, calm, like they were talking about homework, not threats. Harper shook her head. She pulled out her phone anyway and typed Ethan's name into the search bar, then realized she didn't have his number. She stared at the blank screen, jaw clenched, because thank you felt too small for what he'd done, and silence felt felt like betrayal. Across town, Mason Klein sat at his kitchen island, ice pack pressed to his knuckles, smirking through the pain. His father, Councilman Klein, didn't ask if Mason was okay. He asked if anyone saw. "Half the hall," Mason said. "Nobody did anything." Councilman Klein's mouth flattened. "Good. The Dalton girl?" Mason rolled his eyes. Scared. "You sure?" his father snapped, and Mason finally looked up. "She didn't cry," Mason admitted, "but she'll fold." Councilman Klein picked up his phone and walked toward his office like he was going to handle a budget meeting. "Sheriff," he said the second the call connected, "we've got a problem. A kid named Ethan Cole decided he wants attention." The sheriff's laugh came through tinny and easy. "Cole? Trailer park kid?" "Yeah," Councilman Klein said. "I want him quiet. I want it clean. School can't look like it's protecting my boy." "You'll get your clean," Sheriff Willis said. "Garner already called me. I'll talk to O'Brien about that car wash job. And I'll have the county office flag the insurance. Nothing illegal. Just inconvenient." Councilman Klein smiled like a man who'd never lost. "That's what I'm paying you for." Across town, Ethan sat on the edge of the bathtub with a towel pressed to his split lip, staring at his phone like it might explode. Unknown number. It rang. Stopped. Rang again. He let it die. Trouble had a way of finding his address without invitations. He still tried to go to work because fear didn't pay bills. He walked into O'Brien's car wash with his hood up and his face throbbing. Mr. O'Brien took one look at him and swore under his breath. "Kid, I can't." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Can't what?" "I got a call," O'Brien said, eyes darting toward the office phone like it was cursed. "Said you're not on the schedule today. Said if I let you on my property, I'll have inspections." "Who called?" O'Brien didn't answer. He didn't have to. In Black River, the sheriff didn't knock. He just leaned. Ethan nodded like he understood, because arguing wouldn't change it. He walked back out into the cold with the taste of blood still on his tongue. In the living room at home, his mom's cough rolled through the thin trailer walls. Ethan forced his face into something normal and walked out of the bathroom. "You're home early," Marianne Cole said, trying to smile. "Got sent home," Ethan lied. Her eyes went straight to his bruises anyway. Her hand lifted, then hovered, afraid to touch. "Baby." "I'm fine," Ethan set a glass of water in her hands. "Where's your medicine?" Her smile faltered. "I dropped it outside. By the steps. I looked. I couldn't find it." Ethan went cold all at once. Tyler's voice replayed in his head. "Your mom's gonna love the dark." "It's okay," Ethan said, because panic wouldn't refill a prescription. He called the pharmacy. The woman on the line sounded exhausted before she even spoke. "Black River Pharmacy." "I need an early refill," Ethan said. "My mom's meds were lost." Keys clicked. Silence. "I'm sorry," she said, voice turning careful. "Insurance won't approve it. She has 3 pills left." "I understand, but it shows a fill 7 days ago. We can't override it." "Cash," Ethan tried. "I'll pay cash." Another pause. "Not without authorization. Doctor and insurer." "Who do I call?" Her voice lowered. "County office usually handles the approvals." Ethan stared at the wall. County office, Councilman Klein's building, the same last name that had been punching him all day. "Thanks," he said, and hung up. He went to his room, shut the door, and sat on the bed until the anger stopped shaking his hands. When he picked up his phone, there was a text from that same unknown number. "We need to talk. You helped someone today. Don't ignore this." Ethan typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "A friend." Ethan stared at the word. Friend was what people said when they wanted something, or when they weren't allowed to give a name. He set the phone down and listened to the night. A truck passed. A dog barked once and went quiet. The trailer felt smaller with every breath. Rook drove a plain gray sedan through town. Not a bike, not a parade, nothing anyone would remember. He stopped at a diner first, ordered coffee, and listened the way people with real power listen. At a corner booth, 2 deputies laughed about Dalton's kid causing drama at school. They didn't say it like concern, they said it like gossip. One of them snorted. Willis already called Garner, told him keep it contained. The other leaned in. "Councilman Klein's pissed, wants the trailer kid squeezed." Rook paid cash, left without looking at them, and made one call from the parking lot. "Prez," he said, voice flat. Sheriff's involved. Councilman Klein, too. They're squeezing the kid already. Gage's voice came through steady. No noise. Yeah, Rook said. No noise. Just facts. He went straight to the school while the sky was still light enough to see faces. He didn't push through doors like a tough guy. He walked into the front office like a parent who'd taken time off work. I need to speak with Vice Principal Garner, he said politely. The receptionist gave him the once-over. Do you have an appointment? Not yet, Rook smiled. What time does he leave? She hesitated, then glanced at a schedule. Usually 6. Rook thanked her and left without giving a name. At 6:05, Garner stepped into the nearly empty parking lot and froze. Rook stood beside a minivan like he belonged there. Garner's voice came out tight. Who are you? Someone who knows the cameras didn't malfunction, Rook said. Garner's eyes flicked around the lot like he expected backup to appear. You need to leave. Rook didn't move closer. He didn't have to. A kid got hit today. You tried to make him sign an apology. Then the sheriff called you. Garner's face twitched. That's fear, Rook cut in, still calm. And fear makes people do stupid things. Garner's hands shook as he gripped his keys. You don't understand what you're messing with, Rook's gaze hardened. We understand kids don't stay safe when adults sell them out. So here's the choice. You give the footage, or you tell me who erased it. Garner swallowed. There is no footage. Rook nodded like he'd expected the lie. Then tell me who wanted there to be none. Garner's jaw tightened. He couldn't answer without naming the people who owned him. Rook stepped back. You'll call this number when you remember you still have a spine. He slipped a card into Garner's shaking hand and walked away before Garner could decide whether to throw it or hide it. Ethan spent the evening calling numbers that didn't pick up. Doctor's office closed, insurer line dumping him into hold music, neighbors offering sympathy like it was currency. At 9:30, someone knocked on the trailer door. Not a neighborly tap, 3 firm knocks, a pause, 2 more. Ethan grabbed the heavy flashlight from the kitchen drawer and moved to the door. Who is it? A man's voice answered, low and controlled. Ethan Cole? Ethan's grip tightened. Yeah. I'm not here to hurt you, the voice said, but you need to open the door. Ethan stared at the deadbolt, breathing through his nose, and slowly slid it open. The porch light outside Ethan's trailer flickered like it couldn't decide whether to stay on. The man on the other side of the screen door stood far enough back that Ethan could see both his hands. No hoodie, no uniform. Plain dark jacket, jeans, boots that looked broken in but cared for. I'm not here to hurt you, the man repeated. Ethan kept the chain latched. Then why are you here? The man's eyes moved once, past Ethan's shoulder, toward the living room where Marianne's cough had started again. He didn't stare. He just clocked it, like someone who knew what sick sounded like. Because they're already hurting you, he said, and they're going to keep doing it until you fold. Ethan tightened his grip on the flashlight. Who are you? The man reached into his pocket slowly and pulled out a small paper pharmacy bag. He held it up like an offering. Ethan's stomach dropped. That's not yours, Ethan said. It is now, the man replied. Your mom's medication, same dosage, same label. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to keep her alive. Ethan's pulse hammered. Where did you get that? From a pharmacy that still remembers what a human being is, the man said. Cash changes rules. Ethan stared at the bag. The label caught the porch light. His mother's name, her prescription, the one they'd blocked him from replacing. Ethan's voice came out rough. What do you want? To talk, the man said, and to make sure you don't sign anything you shouldn't sign tomorrow. Ethan swallowed. Tomorrow? The school, the sheriff. Someone's going to push a story where you're the problem. The man's tone didn't change, but his eyes hardened. They're going to offer you an easy out. Easy outs in this town come with strings. Ethan's mind raced. The apology form. Garner's smooth voice on the phone with Sheriff Willis. Tyler's grin in the truck. Your mom's gonna love the dark. Ethan slid the chain aside and opened the door just enough to take the bag. He didn't invite the man in. He didn't step back either. The man didn't push forward. He just waited. Ethan nodded toward the yard. Talk out here. Fine, the man said. My name's Rook. That's not a name, Ethan snapped. Rook's mouth twitched once, not offended. It's what people call me. And people call you Ethan Cole. Ethan's jaw tightened. How do you know that? Rook leaned slightly, lowering his voice. Because the girl you helped today went home with a bruise on her arm, and the man who saw that bruise asked questions. Ethan's blood went colder than the night air. The new girl, Harper. Rook nodded. Ethan's heart thumped hard once. Dalton, he said. Rook's eyes stayed on Ethan's, steady and direct. Yeah. Ethan's mouth went dry. Everybody in Black River knew the stories. Motorcycles at the edge of town, a warehouse with lights that stayed on late, men that didn't need police to keep their peace. People spoke the name Dalton like it was either a warning or a dare. Ethan's grip tightened on the paper bag. So this is... what? Payment? Rook shook his head. This is not payment. This is me making sure your mom doesn't miss a dose because some high school idiot wanted to feel powerful. Ethan stared at him, trying to find the angle. I didn't help her because of who her dad is. I know, Rook said. That's why I'm here. Behind Ethan, Marianne's cough eased into a wheeze, then stopped. Silence. Too quiet. Ethan glanced back inside, then stepped onto the porch, shutting the door behind him. Say what you have to say. Rook nodded once, respectful. Mason Klein, Tyler Reese, that third kid, name's Brent Haskins. Their parents hold keys in this town. One of them has a key to the sheriff. That's why the school tried to make you sign that apology. Ethan's stomach twisted. I didn't sign. I know. Rook's gaze sharpened. You wrote a statement instead. That was smart, but it makes you a problem for them. Ethan forced a bitter laugh. I'm already a problem. Rook's voice stayed calm. Here's what's going to happen if you do nothing. They'll squeeze your job. They'll squeeze your mom's meds. They'll squeeze your record until you're the kid who started a fight and has a history. Then, if you ever open your mouth, nobody listens. Ethan felt the air leave his chest. So what do I do? You tell me everything, exactly how it started, exactly what they said, who saw it. Rook paused. And you don't talk to Sheriff Willis without someone with you. Ethan's throat tightened. Why do you care? Rook looked at the porch steps like he was choosing words that wouldn't insult Ethan's intelligence. Because Harper's father doesn't like bullies. That's it, Ethan snapped. Because it's personal? Rook met his eyes again. Because it's right. Ethan blinked, caught off guard by the simplicity. Rook continued. And because if this town learns they can hurt a kid to get to Harper, they won't stop at bruises. They'll escalate. They always do. Ethan swallowed. I don't want trouble with your people. Rook's expression didn't change, but the tone went sharper. Then don't go looking for it. Let us handle the adults playing games. Handle, Ethan repeated. How? Rook reached into his pocket again. Ethan tensed, but Rook pulled out a small business card, plain white with a number and a name. Kara Holt, attorney. Nothing else. She's meeting someone in the morning, Rook said. If you agree, you meet her too. You give a formal statement. You keep it clean. Ethan stared at the card like it weighed 10 pounds. I can't afford a lawyer. Rook's eyes stayed steady. You can't afford not to have one. Ethan's jaw clenched. And if I say no? Rook looked past Ethan toward the street, where a car rolled by slow and didn't quite stop. Then you keep living the way you're living, he said, and they keep testing how far they can push you. Ethan followed his gaze. The car kept moving, but not before Ethan caught the silhouette of a wide shoulder in the passenger seat. He couldn't be sure, but his gut recognized the posture. Mason. Ethan's pulse spiked. They're watching. They've been watching, Rook said. Tonight is just the first time you noticed. Ethan's hand shook once around the card. He shoved it into his pocket like hiding it could make it less real. Fine, he said. I'll tell you everything. But I'm not signing anything that turns me into some club project. Rook's mouth twitched again. You're not a project. Ethan took a breath and started from the beginning. Trophy case, smiles. Tyler's hand on Harper's shoulder, Mason's first punch, the apology demand. What Mason said about Harper's dad, what Tyler said in the truck about his mom in the dark. Rook listened without interrupting. No nodding, no dramatic reactions, just absorbing facts. When Ethan finished, Rook asked one question. Did anyone step in to stop it? Ethan let out a short laugh that had no humor in it. No. Rook's eyes hardened. Good, he said. Ethan frowned. Good? Means they can't pretend it was mutual, Rook replied. Means it was what it was, a pack picking on one kid and a girl they thought they could scare. Ethan's throat tightened. So what happens now? Rook's voice lowered. Now you keep your head down and stay alive long enough to let the truth land. Ethan stared at him. That's it? I'm just supposed to wait? Rook's gaze didn't flinch. No. You're supposed to do the hard thing. Keep doing the right thing even when there's no applause. Ethan looked at his trailer door, then back at Rook. You got her number? Rook's brow lifted. Harper? Ethan's voice dropped. I didn't even get to say, I just want her to know I didn't do it for her name. Rook watched him for a long beat, then nodded once. I'll pass it on. Ethan's shoulders loosened a fraction. Rook stepped down off the porch. Tomorrow morning, 7:30. Diner on Route 12. Booth by the window. You don't drive if your car's been messed with. You walk, you get a ride from someone you trust, or you call this number. He held out a cheap prepaid phone. Ethan stared at it. I don't want that. You do, Rook said, because your phone is easy to track. This one stays off unless you need it. Ethan took it reluctantly, like it was a weapon he didn't know how to use. Rook turned to leave, then paused. One more thing, Ethan. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What? If Sheriff Willis shows up here tonight, Rook said, voice flat, you don't open the door. Ethan's mouth went dry. He can do that? Rook looked over his shoulder. He can do anything he thinks nobody will challenge. Then he walked to his car and drove off slow, like he wasn't afraid of being remembered. Ethan stood on the porch for a long moment, staring at the dark street. He went inside, handed his mom the medication without explaining where it came from, and watched the relief soften her face even as worry stayed in her eyes. Where did you? She started. Friend helped, Ethan said quickly. Don't worry. Marianne touched his bruised cheek with trembling fingers, this time not afraid to make it worse. You're getting mixed up with something, baby. Ethan swallowed hard. I already was. I just didn't know it. Later, when his mom finally fell asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with the prepaid phone, the lawyer's card, and his own cracked screen phone. He kept replaying the same moments like they were clues. Garner's apology form, Sheriff Willis's call, Tyler's threat, the name Dalton in a hallway full of people who refused to intervene. Outside, tires crunched slow on gravel. Ethan froze. Headlights slid across the thin curtains, then stopped. A car door opened, then another. Footsteps approached the trailer, not rushing, not sneaking, confident, like they belonged there. Ethan stood, flashlight in his hand again, breath held, listening to the steps climb the porch. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. Ethan stood frozen with the flashlight in both hands, listening to someone breathe on the other side like they were taking their time. A knuckle tapped the thin wood. Not friendly, not urgent, just certain. Ethan Cole, a man called, voice smooth and loud enough to carry. Open up, sheriff's office. Ethan's stomach tightened so hard it felt like pain. He glanced toward the couch where his mother slept, her mouth slightly open, blanket tucked around her shoulders. One loud word from him, and she'd wake up scared. One wrong move, and the sheriff would have what he wanted. Panic. He didn't answer. The sheriff knocked again, slower this time, like he was teaching a lesson. I know you're in there. I just want a quick chat. Ethan's eyes flicked to the prepaid phone on the kitchen table. Rook's instructions echoed in his head, clear as a siren. If Sheriff Willis shows up, you don't open the door. Ethan swallowed and lowered the flashlight so the beam wouldn't leak through the curtains. He moved with slow, controlled steps to the table, picked up the prepaid and pressed the button. Nothing. Screen dark. He remembered. It stays off unless you need it. His fingers shook as he held the power button. The screen blinked to life. Outside, the sheriff laughed softly, like he knew exactly what Ethan was doing. You can call whoever you want, kid. Doesn't change that I'm standing on your porch. A second voice cut in, young, cocky. Just open up, Cole. Make it easy. Deputy? Ethan didn't know which one, but the tone told him everything. A man who enjoyed this. Ethan thumbed the one number Rook gave him and hit call. It rang once, twice. On the third ring, the sheriff leaned closer to the door. Here's how this goes. You open up, we talk like civilized people, and this whole school incident disappears. You keep hiding, and I start wondering what you're running from. Ethan kept his voice locked inside his chest. The prepaid clicked. Someone answered, but no one spoke. Ethan whispered, barely moving his lips. He's here. A calm voice came back immediately. Don't open the door. The sheriff's hand dragged along the screen like he was testing the frame. Your mom's inside, right? Marianne? She doing okay tonight? I heard she's been having trouble getting her medication. Shame. Ethan's vision tunneled. The deputy chuckled. Come on, the deputy said. You're not a criminal, Cole. Just a kid with a temper. We're here to help. Help? Ethan almost laughed. His nails dug into his palm, hard enough to hurt. On the prepaid, the calm voice said, Stay where you are. Keep quiet. The sheriff's voice softened, dangerous now. You want my advice? You sign that apology tomorrow. You tell the principal you're sorry for causing a disruption. You admit you escalated things. Then Councilman Klein stops calling me about you, and your life goes back to normal. Ethan stared at the door like it was the only thing holding his world together. Normal in Black River meant bending until you broke. The deputy spoke again, closer this time. If you don't open up, we can come back with paperwork. We can make this official. You want that on your record? You want your mom stressed out because you're too proud? Ethan heard his mother shift on the couch and held his breath until she settled again. The sheriff sighed theatrically. All right. Last chance to be smart. Silence. Then the sheriff's tone changed, like he was stepping away from the door while keeping his voice loud enough to reach Ethan. You'll be hearing from the school in the morning. And Ethan didn't move. You're not the kind of kid who wins these fights. Footsteps retreated down the porch steps. Car doors opened. Engines started. Headlights slid across the curtains again, then disappeared as the car rolled away. Ethan stayed standing for a full minute after the sound faded, chest tight, mouth dry. On the prepaid, the voice said, You okay? Ethan swallowed. He threatened my mom. I heard, the voice replied. You did good. Keep the door locked. If you hear anything else tonight, call again. Who are you? Ethan whispered. A pause. A friend of a friend, the voice said. Sleep if you can. You're meeting us in the morning. The line went dead. Ethan turned the prepaid off and sat at the kitchen table until his heart stopped trying to rip out of his ribs. The adrenaline left him shaky and hollow. He looked at his mom and thought about the sheriff saying her name like it was a pressure point. He wanted to be invisible again. But invisibility hadn't protected him. It had only made him easy to step on. By dawn, the sky was the color of wet steel. Ethan left the trailer quietly, pulling his hood low. The air bit at his bruises. He walked fast toward Route 12, cutting through back streets so he wouldn't pass the sheriff's office. Halfway there, he saw the first warning. His old sedan sat crooked in the gravel lot outside a neighbor's place. He'd parked it there the night before out of paranoia. And now the driver's side tire was flat, sliced clean like someone took a blade to it. Not a slow leak. A message. Ethan stood over it, fists clenched, breathing hard. He could almost hear Tyler's voice in his head again, amused and confident. He didn't have time to fix it. He didn't even have money for a new tire. He kept walking. The diner on Route 12 was already busy. Construction guys, early shift workers, tired faces bent over coffee. Ethan stepped inside and immediately felt eyes on him. Not hostile. Measuring. Booth by the window. Rook sat alone with a mug in front of him. Plain clothes again, nothing that screamed who he belonged to. He didn't wave. He didn't call out. He just waited until Ethan slid into the booth. You made it, Rook said. Ethan's voice was rough. Sheriff came to my house last night. Rook's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. I know. How? Rook nodded toward the window. Across the lot, a beat-up pickup idled for a few seconds, then rolled away. People talk, and people watch. Ethan's jaw tightened. He threatened my mom. He used her name like he had her on a list. Rook's voice stayed calm. That's how he works. He doesn't need to hit you. He just needs you to feel like he can. A waitress came over. Coffee? Ethan hesitated, then nodded. He hadn't eaten since yesterday. Hunger felt distant compared to fear. Rook waited until the waitress left, then slid a small recorder across the table. Nothing fancy, the kind reporters use. Tell me the sheriff's exact words. Again. Ethan stared at it. You're recording me? It's for your lawyer, Rook said. If you want this to end, we do it clean. My lawyer, Ethan repeated bitterly. Rook didn't react to the tone. Kara's on her way. She'll explain what you say, what you don't say, and why. Ethan's throat tightened. If I talk, they'll come harder. They're coming harder anyway, Rook said. Talking just gives you armor. The bell above the door jingled. A woman walked in like she belonged anywhere she stepped. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, hair pulled back, coat still on, a briefcase in one hand. She scanned the room once, found the booth, and came straight over. "Kara Holt," she said, sliding in across from Ethan. Her voice was professional, warm enough not to scare him. "You must be Ethan." Ethan nodded, unsure what to do with his hands. Kara set her briefcase down and opened it. "I'm going to be direct. The school will try to frame yesterday as mutual conflict. The sheriff will back that version. If you sign anything admitting fault, you make their job easy." "I didn't sign," Ethan said. "Good," Kara replied. "Now we replace fear with paperwork. I'm filing a formal complaint with the district and with the state office that oversees misconduct. We also document intimidation, workplace interference, medication interference, and the sheriff showing up at your home." Ethan's mouth went dry. "State office?" Kara nodded. "The local system is compromised. We go above it." Ethan looked at Rook. "This is because of Harper." Kara's eyes flicked to Rook, then back to Ethan. "This is because you were assaulted and then targeted." "That's enough." Ethan swallowed. "The bullies' parents are powerful." "I've read their names," Kara said. "Power doesn't like daylight. That's why they avoid official records." Rook leaned in slightly. "We also need witnesses." Ethan let out a short laugh. "Nobody stepped in." Kara's gaze stayed steady. "Someone always sees. They just don't always speak. But once you file formally, you give them a reason to come forward without being the first target." The waitress returned with coffee. Ethan wrapped his hands around the mug for warmth and took a sip that tasted like burned comfort. Kara slid a sheet of paper across the table. "Write down everything you remember. Names, times, exact phrases, especially anything about your mother. Threats are leverage in court." Ethan picked up the pen. His hand shook. He forced it still and started writing. Trophy case, Mason Klein, Tyler Reese, Brent Haskins. "Tell your daddy you made friends." "Your mom's gonna love the dark, Sheriff Willis. Shame about her meds." As he wrote, his anger sharpened into something cleaner. It wasn't rage anymore. It was focus. Kara read over his shoulder, nodding. "Good. Now listen carefully. You do not speak to the school without me. You do not speak to the sheriff without me. If they call, you say, 'I want counsel present.' That's all." Ethan's eyes lifted. "They'll say I'm guilty if I need a lawyer." Kara didn't blink. "Let them. Guilty people try to charm. Innocent people protect themselves." Rook checked his phone once, then looked up. "Harper's on her way." Ethan tensed. "Why?" "Because she's also filing," Kara said, "and she wants to tell you something." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't know what he wanted from Harper. Gratitude felt awkward. Attention felt dangerous. The bell jingled again. Harper walked in wearing a hoodie and jeans, hair pulled back, moving fast like she didn't want anyone to get a good look. She spotted Ethan and stopped short when she saw his face in daylight, bruises darker, swelling worse than yesterday. Her eyes flashed with anger. "Oh my God!" Ethan looked away first. "I'm fine." "You're not," Harper snapped, then softened as she slid into the booth beside Kara. "They did that because of me." "No," Ethan said quickly. "They did it because they could." Harper stared at him for a beat, then nodded slowly, like that answer mattered. "My dad knows," she said. She stopped herself and glanced at Kara instead. Kara's tone stayed controlled. "We're keeping family out of the record unless it's relevant." Harper exhaled, then looked at Ethan again. "I didn't want you dragged into this," she said quieter. "But thank you. For yesterday. I wasn't ready for them." "You were." Ethan's throat tightened. "I wasn't ready either." Harper's jaw clenched. "They think they can use me, like I'm a lever." Rook's voice was calm. "That's what they're doing." Harper leaned in, lowering her voice. "Mason's dad is telling everyone you attacked his son, that you're violent, that you're unstable." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Already?" Harper nodded. "I heard it in the office." "They were on the phone. They're building a story." Kara's eyes sharpened. "Good. Let them. Stories fall apart when they hit evidence." Harper's gaze darted toward the window. "There's more. This morning a car followed me to the diner, not one of ours, a county vehicle." Ethan's fingers tightened on the coffee mug. "Sheriff," Rook nodded once. "He's watching, which means we're doing something he doesn't like." Kara closed her briefcase with a firm click. "Here's what happens next. Harper goes to school with me. Ethan, you do not walk in alone. We go together. We request the incident report, the camera footage, and staff statements. If they refuse, we document the refusal. Every no is a brick. Ethan stared at her. They'll try to suspend me again. They can, Kara said. And if they do it to punish you for reporting assault, that's retaliation. Retaliation is actionable. Ethan swallowed. What about my mom? They can keep messing with her meds. Kara's expression softened just slightly. I've already called her clinic. We're arranging an emergency override and a paper trail. If someone blocks it again, we'll know where it gets blocked. Ethan felt something loosen in his chest, just a fraction. Not safety, not yet, but a path. Rook stood. Time. They paid and walked out together. The winter air hit hard. Ethan saw the county sedan parked down the lot, engine running, a silhouette behind the wheel. The driver didn't get out, just watched. Harper noticed too. Her shoulders squared. Kara didn't even look at it. She kept walking like intimidation was background noise. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket, his regular phone, the one Rook told him not to trust. Unknown number again. He didn't open it. He turned it off. As they reached Kara's car, a pickup swung into the diner lot too fast and stopped near the county sedan. Mason Klein climbed out, smirking despite the cold, his friends behind him. He pointed at Ethan like this was still the hallway, like the world belonged to him. Hey, trailer boy, Mason called loud enough for people to turn. Ready to apologize today? Ethan's heartbeat surged. Harper tensed beside him. Rook stepped half a pace forward, calm as stone, and Mason's smirk flickered, just for a second, like his body recognized danger even if his mouth didn't. Kara's voice cut through clean and sharp. Say one more word to my client and you'll be explaining it to a judge. Mason laughed, but it sounded thinner now. Your client? He's a kid. Kara stared him down. So are you. That's why I'm giving you a chance to walk away. Mason's eyes flicked to the county sedan like he expected backup. The driver stayed inside. Ethan realized something in that moment that made his stomach twist. The sheriff was watching this too, watching to see who blinked. Mason raised his hands like a show. Fine, I'll be nice. He leaned in toward Harper, voice dripping. Tell your daddy we're not scared. Harper's face went cold. He already knows, she said. Mason's smile hardened. Good. He backed away, climbed into the pickup, and peeled out of the lot, tires spitting gravel. The county sedan rolled away right after, slow and deliberate, like a promise. Ethan stood there, breathing hard, realizing the fight wasn't in the hallway anymore. It was everywhere now, and the adults were finally stepping onto the field. The school looked normal from the outside, flag flapping, buses lined up, kids spilling through the front doors like the world was still simple. But the moment Ethan stepped out of Kara Holt's car, he felt the weight of eyes, not just students, adults, staff, people who already had a version of the story in their heads. Harper stayed close, chin up, hoodie tight around her shoulders. Rook didn't come to the door with them. He stayed across the street near a coffee shop, sitting in a plain car like he was invisible. He wasn't. Ethan could feel him there anyway, like a steady pressure on the edge of the scene. Kara walked in first. The front office smelled like cheap carpet cleaner and old paper. A receptionist looked up, saw Harper, then saw Ethan's bruises, and her face stiffened like she'd been told what to do if this happened. Can I help you? She asked, already reaching for the phone. Yes, Kara said calmly. I'm Kara Holt, attorney. I'm here with my clients Ethan Cole and Harper Dalton. We're requesting the incident report from yesterday, the names of staff present in that hallway, and the raw footage from all cameras covering the trophy case corridor from 8 to 8:30 a.m. The receptionist blinked like nobody had ever said those words in this office before. We don't. Kara's smile didn't change. You do. And if you claim you don't, you'll put that refusal in writing. The receptionist's hand froze above the phone. I'll get Vice Principal Garner. Good, Kara said, and sat down like she had all day. Ethan stood by the wall, hands shoved in his hoodie pocket to hide the shaking. Harper sat beside him, but her knee bounced under the chair, fast and furious. A door opened. Garner stepped out, face tight, posture too controlled. Behind him, Principal Latham hovered like she'd just been pulled from a meeting. Garner's eyes went straight to Ethan, then to Harper, then landed on Kara and stayed there. Ms. Holt, he said, this is highly unusual. It's only unusual when people are used to getting away with things, Kara replied. We're here for records. Principal Latham forced a smile that never reached her eyes. We take student safety very seriously. Ethan almost laughed. He didn't. Kara slid a folder across the counter. Then you won't mind complying. We're requesting the full report and all video. Also, documentation of any phone calls made to your office about this incident yesterday. Garner's jaw tightened. We can't release footage without district approval. Then you'll preserve it, Kara said, immediately, in writing, and you'll provide it to district council. If any footage is deleted now, it becomes evidence tampering. Principal Latham's smile cracked slightly. There's no need for threats. That wasn't a threat, Kara said, voice still even. It was a reminder of how laws work. Garner's hand flexed at his side. I need to speak with Mr. Cole alone. No, Kara said, Garner's lips pressed together. It's a school matter. Kara leaned forward just slightly. He was assaulted on school property. You attempted to coerce him into signing an apology, and a law enforcement officer came to his home last night to intimidate him. This is no longer a school matter. It's a record. Harper's eyes snapped to Kara. You know about last night? Ethan didn't look at Harper. He couldn't. He felt the heat of shame and anger crawling up his neck. Principal Latham's voice sharpened. Sheriff Willis is a respected member of this community. Kara's gaze didn't move. Then he won't mind being documented. For a long second, nobody spoke. The silence got thick enough to choke on. Then Garner cleared his throat and forced the tone back into administration. We can provide an incident report. Today, Kara said. Yes, Garner said, stiff. Today. And the footage? Kara asked. Garner's eyes flicked to Principal Latham. Latham's fingers tightened around her clipboard. We had a technical issue, Latham said. The camera near the trophy case. Kara raised a hand politely, stopping her mid-sentence. Save it. You will preserve the system's hard drive and any backups. You will provide a written statement identifying who had access to the camera system from yesterday morning to last night, and you will provide the maintenance logs. Today. Garner's face went pale for a moment. Ethan saw it. Fear. Not of Kara. Of whoever controlled the building more than they did. Behind the receptionist, a door opened and a man stepped out of the back hallway like he owned the air. Sheriff Willis. He wore his uniform like a costume he knew played well in public, hat tucked under his arm, badge catching the light, smile already in place. He didn't look surprised to see Ethan. He looked satisfied. Well, Willis said warmly, like they'd met at a barbecue. If it isn't Ethan Cole, heard you had yourself a rough day. Ethan's stomach flipped. He remembered the porch, the way the sheriff said his mother's name like it tasted sweet. Kara stood. Sheriff Willis. Willis's smile widened. Ma'am, didn't realize we had lawyers in the building this early. We didn't realize we had sheriffs visiting teenagers at night over a school fight, Kara said evenly. A flicker passed through Willis's eyes, so fast most people would miss it. Then he chuckled. I was making sure a young man understood the seriousness of his actions. Nothing more. Ethan's hands clenched in his pockets until his nails dug into his palms. Harper stood too, voice sharp. He didn't do anything. Willis turned to Harper with practiced softness. Morning, Miss Dalton. I'm sorry you were upset yesterday. Upset? Harper snapped. They grabbed me. They hit him. That's not upset. That's assault. Willis's smile held. Kids get carried away. Kara's voice cut clean. We're not here to debate semantics. We're here for records. Are you here in an official capacity, Sheriff? Willis's eyes slid to Kara, then to Garner, then back. I'm here because the school asked for support. Kara nodded as if that confirmed something she'd been waiting to hear. Then your presence is now part of the record. I'll note it. Willis's smile tightened. You do that. He stepped closer to Ethan, just enough to invade space without touching. Ethan, he said softly, like this was private. I'm trying to help you. Councilman Klein's a busy man. He doesn't like distractions. You apologize, we smooth this over, and you go back to your life. Ethan didn't move. My life, he repeated, voice rough. The one where you threatened my mom's medication? Garner's head snapped up. Principal Latham went rigid. Willis's smile didn't drop, but his eyes turned colder. I didn't threaten anybody. Ethan swallowed. The words felt dangerous in his mouth, but they were already out there. You said her name on my porch. You said it was a shame about her meds. The receptionist stared at her computer screen like it could hide her. Willis laughed quietly. That's not a threat. That's concern. Kara stepped between them without drama. We're done here. We'll wait for the written preservation notice and the incident report. If those aren't produced by end of day, I'll file an emergency motion and a complaint with the State Oversight Board. Willis's voice stayed smooth. Big words for a small town. And big badges for small men, Harper snapped before she could stop herself. The room went dead silent. Willis looked at Harper for a long beat, then smiled again, slow and careful. "You're your father's daughter," he said, and it didn't sound like a compliment. He turned and walked out like none of it mattered. The second he left, Garner exhaled like he'd been holding his breath too long. Principal Latham's smile returned in a crooked, frantic version. "We'll gather what we can," she said. Kara's gaze hardened. "You'll gather what you must." They waited. 40 minutes. An hour. Students passed the office window in waves, glancing in like there was a show. Somewhere down the hall, laughter rose and fell. Ethan heard Mason's voice once, distant, confident, then heard it get quieter, like he'd moved away. The kid was still in the building, still walking free. Finally, Garner returned with a thin packet and a single sheet of paper. He slid the packet across. "Incident report," he said, "preliminary." Kara flipped it open, eyes scanning fast. "This is incomplete." "It's what we have," Garner said, tight. Kara held up the preservation notice. It was 2 paragraphs, vague, no names, no access logs. "This is not sufficient," Kara said. Garner's voice rose a notch. "Ms. Holt, I'm doing what I can." Kara's tone didn't change. "Then do more." Ethan stared at the incident report. It described a verbal altercation that escalated. It listed Ethan's name, then Mason's name, then Tyler's. It didn't mention Harper being cornered. It didn't mention, "Tell your daddy you made friends." It didn't mention a single staff member witnessing anything, which Ethan knew was a lie. Kara's finger tapped a line. "You wrote that Ethan approached aggressively." Garner swallowed. "That's what the students said." "The students who assaulted him," Kara said flatly. Principal Latham's voice went thin. "We have to consider all sides." Harper's jaw tightened. "There aren't sides, there's what happened." Kara closed the packet. "We'll correct the record. I'll submit affidavits, and I'm putting the district on notice right now." She looked at Ethan. "We're leaving." They walked out into the hall. That's when the teachers finally looked. Heads turned, conversations dipped. People saw Ethan's bruises and Harper's rigid posture and Kara's briefcase, and suddenly the air shifted. Not sympathy. Fear. Because fear is what made adults obedient in this town. At the end of the hall, Mason Klein leaned against a locker with Tyler and Brent. Mason's smile was relaxed, like he'd been waiting for this moment. He clapped slowly. "Wow," he called. "Got yourself a lawyer. That's adorable." Kara didn't stop walking. "Mason Klein," she said without looking at him, like reading a name off a list. "Do not speak to my client." Mason grinned wider. "He's not your client. He's a trailer rat who swung at me." Ethan felt Harper tense beside him. Kara stopped and turned fully. Her eyes locked on Mason's like a spotlight. "Here's how this works. You keep talking, and your words become evidence. Your father will have to read them in a courtroom, in public, under oath." Mason's grin twitched. Tyler's smile faltered. Mason recovered fast. "My dad doesn't go to court." Kara nodded once. "Everyone does eventually." Mason's eyes flicked toward the hallway corner where Sheriff Willis stood half hidden near a trophy display, watching like a spectator. He didn't step in. He didn't stop Mason. He just watched, waiting to see who would break. Ethan looked at Willis and understood something ugly and clear. This was entertainment for him. Pressure, control, a town built like a cage. Harper saw the same thing. She stared back at Willis without flinching. Mason leaned closer, lowering his voice, but still loud enough to cut. "Tell your daddy I'll make you regret bringing lawyers to school." Harper's voice came out quiet, deadly. "Tell your daddy you made a mistake." Mason's smile collapsed for half a second, then returned sharper. "We'll see?" Kara touched Harper's shoulder lightly. "Walk." They walked, but the second they hit the parking lot, Ethan felt the trap spring in another way. A tow truck was hooked to Kara's car. Ethan stared, not believing it. The driver didn't even look guilty. He just kept working. Kara's steps slowed. "Excuse me," she called, voice clipped. "What are you doing?" The tow driver finally looked up, shrugging like this was normal. "Vehicle's being towed. Order came in from county." "On what basis?" Kara asked. "Expired registration," the driver said. "Not my call." Kara's eyes narrowed. She knew the game. "My registration is current." The tow driver shrugged again. Got paperwork. Ethan's anger surged. This is harassment. The tow driver didn't argue. He didn't have to. Harassment was the point. Across the lot, the county sedan rolled slowly past. Sheriff Willis sat in the passenger seat this time, staring straight ahead like he didn't see anything. Kara pulled out her phone, hands steady. "Fine," she said, voice controlled. "We'll document this too." Harper's hands clenched into fists. "They're doing it because you're helping him." Kara didn't look away from the tow truck. "They're doing it because they're used to winning without witnesses." Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He didn't turn it on. He didn't need to. He already knew what the message would be. You can't win this. A car horn blared nearby. A woman in a janitor's uniform stood at the edge of the lot, looking nervous like she might bolt. She lifted one hand halfway, then dropped it, then lifted it again like she was fighting herself. Ethan noticed her because she was looking at him, not at Harper, not at Kara, at him. He stepped toward her a few feet, careful. "Ma'am." The woman swallowed hard. Her eyes flicked to the county sedan, then back to Ethan. I saw it," she whispered. Ethan's throat tightened. "You saw yesterday?" She nodded quickly, terrified. "I was coming out of the supply room. I saw them corner her. I saw them hit you." Kara turned sharply, stepping closer. "What's your name?" The woman hesitated, lips trembling. "Linda," she said. "Linda Price." Kara's voice softened just a fraction. "Linda, are you willing to give a statement?" Linda's eyes filled with panic. "If I do, they'll fire me. My husband." Kara nodded, understanding. "If you don't, they'll do it again to someone else, and next time it might be worse." Linda's hands shook. She glanced at the sedan again. "He knows everyone," she whispered. Ethan's voice came out raw. "They already came to my house." Linda flinched like that confirmed her worst fear. She looked at Ethan's bruised eye, then at Harper's tight face. Something hardened in her expression, small but real. I'll write it," Linda said, barely audible. "But I can't be seen." Kara opened her briefcase right there in the cold and pulled out a notepad. "We'll do it now. Quick. Simple." "Truth." Linda leaned close and started speaking in a rush, voice shaking. Kara wrote fast, eyes sharp. Ethan listened, heart pounding, because this was the first crack in the wall. Linda described the trophy case, the way Tyler grabbed Harper, the way Mason hit Ethan, the laughter, the phones, the teacher who passed by and kept walking. Kara looked up. "Which teacher?" Linda swallowed. "Mr. Dennison, history." Ethan felt sick. Dennison had looked right at him yesterday and kept going. Kara kept writing. "Anyone else present?" Linda hesitated, then whispered, "Coach Ward." But he turned away. Harper's eyes narrowed. They all knew. Kara finished, tore the page carefully and held it out. "Linda, sign." Linda's hand shook so hard the pen scratched, but she signed. Then she stepped back like she'd just jumped off a cliff. Kara slid the statement into her folder like it was gold. "Thank you," she said simply. Linda nodded once, eyes wet, then turned and walked fast toward the building, head down, like she could erase herself if she moved quick enough. Ethan stood there, chest tight, watching her go, realizing what courage looked like in a town built on fear. Rook's car rolled up to the curb across the street, slow. He didn't get out. He didn't wave. He just sat there, watching the tow truck, the county sedan, the school entrance, all of it. And Ethan understood. This wasn't just a school fight anymore. This was a system, and they'd just found their first witness. Kara didn't argue with the tow driver. She photographed the paperwork, photographed the license plate on the tow truck, and photographed the county sedan cruising past like a shark that didn't need to bite to be understood. Then she turned to Ethan and Harper, voice clipped and calm. "This is intimidation," she said, "so we document it and we keep moving." Ethan watched the hook chain tighten under Kara's car and felt something break loose inside him, an old belief that rules applied evenly. He'd grown up poor, but he'd still believed there was a line adults wouldn't cross with kids. Sheriff Willis had crossed it last night on his porch, and now he was crossing it in daylight. Harper's hands shook with contained fury. "He wants you isolated," she said to Ethan. "That's why he's taking away rides, jobs, everything." Ethan didn't answer. He was looking at the school doors, at kids streaming out like nothing was happening, at teachers who wouldn't meet his eyes. He felt like he was standing in the middle of a town that could look right through him when it was convenient. Rook's plain sedan rolled up at the curb without fanfare. He didn't step out. He cracked the window. "Get in," he he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Kara hesitated only long enough to note the time on her phone. Then she guided Harper into the back seat and Ethan into the front, the way you'd seat fragile cargo without saying it out loud. They drove 2 blocks before Kara spoke again. "I'm sending the preservation demand to the district superintendent and district council right now," she said, already typing. "Not the school, not the sheriff. And I'm filing a complaint with the state oversight office naming Willis directly." Ethan stared out the window, watching Black River slide by. Barbershop, hardware store, church sign promising salvation, and under it, all the same invisible network that decided who got helped and who got squeezed. Rook kept his eyes on the road. "Linda's statement is solid," he said, "but we need more." "We'll get more," Kara replied. "People break when they realize they're not alone." Harper leaned forward from the back. "They're already spreading lies. Mason told half the school Ethan attacked him." Kara didn't look up. "Good. Lies require maintenance. Truth just needs to be recorded once." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Truth doesn't pay for my mom's medication." Silence filled the car for a second. Heavy, honest. Kara's voice softened a fraction. "I called her clinic again. They're writing an emergency override. If county blocks it, it becomes part of a retaliation report. And Ethan, we'll get you a temporary shift somewhere not controlled by Willis." Ethan looked at her. "Somewhere that's not controlled by him doesn't exist." Rook's tone stayed flat. "It exists. It's just not in town." They dropped Harper at Lena's house first. Quiet street, curtains drawn, a sense of watchfulness in every detail. Harper paused at the door and looked back at Ethan through the open car window. "Thank you again," she said, and this time she didn't let it sound small. "If anything feels off tonight, you call." Ethan nodded once. He didn't trust his voice. When Harper disappeared inside, Rook drove Ethan and Kara to a small office building on the edge of town that Ethan had never noticed before. The sign on the door said, "Holt Law," in simple black letters. Inside, Kara moved fast. Papers came out, copies of the incident report, photos of Ethan's bruises, Linda Price's signed statement, a timeline Kara kept building like a wall brick by brick. "You're going to write your affidavit," she told Ethan, sliding a blank page across the table. "Not emotional, not dramatic, just facts." Ethan picked up the pen. His hand didn't shake now. Anger had settled into something colder. He wrote what happened, the names, the words, the way adults looked away. He wrote the sheriff's porch visit, the line about his mother's medication. He wrote about the tow truck. When he finished, he sat back and stared at the page like it belonged to someone else. Kara read it, then nodded. "Good. Now sign and date." Ethan signed. The pen scratched through the paper like a vow. Kara scanned the affidavit into her computer and hit send to multiple addresses without hesitation. Then she turned her screen toward Ethan. "This is what I filed," she said. "District council, superintendent, state oversight. Not a single one of these goes through Black River's internal system." Ethan stared at the email thread, the subject line reading, "Formal notice, assault and retaliation." It felt unreal that his life could fit into a subject line. Rook stood by the window, checking the street. "We're going to need the camera footage," he said. Kara nodded. "Even if they claim it's gone." Rook looked at her. "If it's gone, we find out who made it disappear." That evening, in the back of the Black River warehouse, Gage Dalton listened without interrupting as Rook laid out the day's events. The tow, the sheriff's appearance in the school office, the preservation notice that said everything and nothing. Gage's face didn't change, but the muscles in his jaw tightened as if he were chewing a nail. "No cuts near the school," he reminded the room. "No noise." A few men shifted, restless. Gage lifted a hand. The room settled again. "We don't win by swinging. We win by making sure the people who think they're untouchable get touched by the system they've been abusing." A man with gray hair and wire-frame glasses stepped forward, one of the few in the room who didn't look like a biker at all. He carried a small case like a technician. "This is Miles," Rook said. "He used to install security systems for half the county." Miles set the case down. "Schools like theirs don't run one camera," he said, voice steady. "They run a recorder, a DVR or NVR. Deleting footage from the front screen doesn't always delete it from the drive, and even if it's overwritten, access logs stay, logins, times, remote connections. Gage's eyes narrowed slightly. Can you get it? Miles didn't brag. He just nodded. If I can access the recorder, I can pull what's left. If I can't access the recorder, I can trace who did. Most administrators don't know how to wipe properly. They just think they do. The room went still in a different way, focused, hungry, disciplined. Gage looked at Rook. Quiet, he said again. Rook nodded. Quiet. Ethan spent that night at home, sitting in the dark with his mom's breathing as the only steady sound. The medication bag was in the kitchen cabinet now, hidden behind cereal boxes like something precious. His mother was sleeping better, but the fear hadn't left her face even in rest. Around 10, headlights washed over the trailer curtains. Ethan's body tensed automatically, but it wasn't the sheriff this time. A county truck idled outside with a magnetic seal on the door. Two men stepped out wearing cheap jackets and the kind of confidence that came from being backed by someone else's badge. Ethan watched through a slit in the curtain as one of them knocked once on the neighbor's trailer, then walked away. Not a real visit. A show. His reminder. We can appear whenever we want. Ethan didn't open his door. He stood in the kitchen with the prepaid phone in his palm, sweat cold on his neck, listening to the county truck roll out of the lot like it had never been there. The next morning, Ethan went to school because Kara told him to, because staying home would let them write the story without him. He walked through the front doors with his hood up and his bruises half covered, and he felt the immediate shift, the way whispers tracked him, the way eyes darted away when he turned. Mason Klein was already there, leaning against the same lockers like he'd been installed permanently. Tyler and Brent stood beside him, all three wearing smiles like they owned the building. Mason raised his voice just enough for people to hear. "Look who's back," he said. "Trailer boy with the rich girl." Ethan didn't stop walking. Mason stepped into his path. "Hey," he said, voice quieter now. "I heard you got lawyers and bikers now. That's cute." Ethan kept his face blank. "Move," Mason's smile sharpened. "Or what?" Ethan's heartbeat thudded, but he didn't look away. He didn't threaten. He didn't give Mason what Mason wanted. Then Tyler leaned in, close enough for Ethan to smell energy drink on his breath. "You know why you're still alive?" Tyler whispered. "Because you're useful, right now. But you won't be forever." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Back off." Mason's hand patted Ethan's bruised cheek, gentle like a mockery. "You should have stayed in your lane," he said softly. "We're not done." Ethan didn't flinch. He walked around him and kept moving. By lunch, Harper wasn't at school. That alone made Ethan's nerves spike. He tried to tell himself it was for safety, that Kara had decided to keep her out until the heat cooled. But the air felt too charged, too eager. When the bell rang for last period, Ethan cut behind the gym to avoid the hallway pressure. He'd learned routes the way poor kids learn, paths that let you disappear when you needed to. Behind the gym, the dumpsters sat in a row, the smell of old food and wet cardboard thick in the cold. Ethan moved fast, head down. Then he heard voices. Mason's laugh, Tyler's lower tone, Brent's quiet murmur. Ethan froze behind the corner of the building, heart hammering. He should have walked away. He knew that. But the words carried, and his body didn't move. "You bring in the rope?" Tyler asked, like they were planning a prank. Mason snorted. "Not rope, zip ties, cleaner." Brent spoke for the first time, voice uneasy. "If her dad finds out," Mason cut him off. "That's the point. He needs to learn we don't scare." Tyler laughed. "Where?" Mason's voice dropped. "After practice, old boathouse by the river. We grab her for 2 minutes, just long enough to take a picture. Send it to her, send it to him, let the trailer kid watch too, if he wants to be a hero." Ethan's blood turned to ice. Brent hesitated. "What about cameras?" Tyler's tone turned smug. "Deputy Carver's got the road blocked for construction tonight. No cars, no lights, no problems." Ethan's throat tightened so hard it hurt. Mason's voice went cruelly light. "We're not hurting her. Not really. Just reminding her who runs this school. And reminding that kid. He can't hide behind lawyers forever." Tyler laughed again. "He's gonna fold when his mom runs out of meds, or when his trailer catches bad wiring." Ethan's vision tunneled. His hands clenched so hard his knuckles ached. The urge to jump out, to swing, to break something, anything, rose up like a wave. He forced it down. Noise would get him killed. Noise would make him the story. He stepped back silently, then turned and walked the long way around the building, breathing through his nose, counting steps like it was the only thing keeping him steady. He didn't go to his next class. He went straight to the bathroom, locked himself in a stall, and powered on the prepaid phone with shaking fingers. He called Kara. When she answered, Ethan didn't waste a single word. "They're going after Harper," he said, voice tight. "Tonight. River, Old Boathouse, Mason Klein, Tyler Reese, Brent Haskins. They said Deputy Carver's helping." There was a pause on the line, not disbelief, calculation. "Where are you right now?" Kara asked. "School," Ethan whispered. "Stay inside. Find an adult you trust and do not tell them what you told me," Kara said, each word sharp and controlled. "I'm making calls. Do you understand?" Ethan swallowed. "Yes." "And Ethan," Kara added, voice firm, "you did the right thing by not confronting them. You did the right thing by calling me." Ethan stared at the stall door, breathing hard. "I don't want her hurt because of me." "She won't be," Kara said, "not if we act correctly." Ethan turned the prepaid off and sat there for a second, hearing Mason's laugh echo in his head like a threat that had already started moving. When he finally stood, his legs felt heavy. But he walked out of the bathroom and back into the hallway like he belonged there, like fear wasn't sitting under his skin. He had done what he could do. Now the adults had to prove they would do theirs. Ethan sat through the rest of the school day like his body was there, and his mind was already at the river. Every laugh in the hallway sounded sharper. Every slammed locker felt like a countdown. Kara's instructions had been clear. Stay inside, don't confront, don't tip them off. But the words he overheard behind the gym kept looping. Zip ties, picture, deputy blocking the road. That wasn't a prank. That was a message. At 3:18 p.m., his prepaid buzzed once. "Kara. Go home, lock the door. If you leave school, go straight there." Ethan typed back with stiff fingers. "Ethan, well, what about Harper?" The reply came fast. "Kara, we're handling it." We sounded like adults in systems and plans. Ethan wanted to believe that was enough. He left school at dismissal, kept his head down, took side streets. His bruises were starting to yellow at the edges, but the pain felt fresh anyway. He made it to the trailer park and forced himself through routine. Check on his mom, put soup on the stove, make sure her pill bottle was full. Marianne watched him with that quiet, mother knowledge that knew a storm was nearby. "You're not okay," she said softly. Ethan kept his voice steady. "I'm just tired." Marianne held his face between her hands, careful around the swelling. "Promise me you won't do anything stupid." Ethan swallowed. The promise stuck in his throat. "I won't do anything," he said, which was almost true. At 6:42 p.m., the prepaid buzzed again. "Rook. Stay put." Ethan stared at the screen until the letters blurred. He set the phone down and paced the kitchen like a trapped animal. He tried to picture Harper safe behind a locked door, tried to picture Mason and Tyler backing off because paperwork existed. Then his regular phone lit up on the counter. He turned it back on just long enough to check for any message from Kara. Unknown number. A single text appeared. "If you want to be a hero again, come watch." A pin-drop location followed. Old River Road. Ethan's hands went cold. He didn't know if it was Mason trying to bait him or something worse. Either way, it meant they were moving. His mom coughed from the couch, and guilt hit him like a punch. He grabbed a notebook, scribbled a note, "Back soon, soup is on low, call me if you need me," then hated himself for how small it looked on paper. He turned off the kitchen light and slipped out the back door. The air outside was sharp and wet. He walked fast at first, then faster, sticking to tree lines and yards, avoiding main roads. The river was a black ribbon cutting through town, and Old River Road ran alongside it like a secret. By the time he reached the edge of the woods near the boathouse, his lungs burned. He crouched behind a fallen log and listened. The river moved slow. Wind pushed through bare branches. Somewhere close, an engine idled, then shut off. Ethan peeked through the trees. The boathouse sat half-collapsed on pilings, boards warped and gray. 2 trucks were parked on the dirt turnout with their lights off. He recognized one, the same pickup Tyler drove. A second vehicle sat farther down the road, angled like it was blocking traffic. Deputy Carver. The county SUV's hazard lights blinked lazily, like a construction scene. No cones, no signs, just a badge and an implied threat. Ethan's pulse hammered. He fumbled the prepaid out, kept the screen dim under his palm, and typed a message to Kara. Ethan. They're here. Carver's blocking the road. Tyler's truck, boathouse. He hit send and held his breath. A minute later, headlights appeared on the far bend. One set, then another behind it, moving slow. A dark sedan rolled up to Carver's SUV and stopped. Carver leaned into the driver's window like this was routine. The sedan crept forward, past the block, and turned into the turnout by the boathouse. Ethan's stomach dropped when he saw who stepped out. Harper, hood up, phone in hand. She looked around once, wary, like she already knew it was wrong. But she still walked forward, drawn in by something Ethan couldn't hear. Maybe a text, maybe a threat, maybe a lie that sounded urgent enough to override caution. Ethan's body wanted to surge out of the woods and grab her. He stayed frozen because movement would get him seen. Mason Klein emerged from behind Tyler's truck like he'd been waiting in the dark. Tyler came with him. Brent hovered a step back, shoulders tight, face pale under the moonlight. Harper stopped mid-step. Her posture changed instantly, ready, alert. She turned as if to go back to the car. Mason's voice carried, "Relax, we just want to talk." Harper's reply was sharp. "Move," Tyler laughed. "See? Attitude. That's why we're here." Ethan saw Harper's hand tighten around her phone. She lifted it slightly, recording or calling. Mason stepped closer fast. "Don't," he warned. Harper backed up a step. "Touch me, and you're dead." Mason smiled like that line amused him. "That's the thing, Harper. You think your dad makes you untouchable, but you're here alone, and nobody's watching." Ethan's jaw clenched so hard, his teeth ached. In the distance, Deputy Carver stayed near his SUV, body turned away, pretending the river was fascinating. Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out white zip ties. Brent's eyes darted to them, then away. Harper's voice went cold. "You're stupid." "Maybe," Mason said, "but we're about to be memorable." Tyler lunged. Harper twisted sideways, faster than Ethan expected, and Tyler grabbed a fistful of her sleeve instead of her arm. Fabric tore. Harper drove her knee up into Tyler's thigh. He cursed and stumbled. Mason moved in, grabbed Harper by the wrist. Harper jerked hard, trying to break free. Ethan's instincts finally snapped the leash. He burst from the woods and sprinted across the dirt, shoes sliding in mud. "Harper!" Every head turned. For 1 second, Harper's eyes locked on Ethan's. Shock, then understanding, then a flash of fury like she wanted to scream at him for coming. Mason's face lit up with satisfaction. "Well, look at that," he said. "He came." Tyler recovered and swung at Ethan. Ethan ducked, felt the punch graze his ear, then slammed his shoulder into Tyler's chest. They both went down in the dirt. Ethan didn't try to fight clean. He fought to make noise. He shouted, loud, raw, "Help! Somebody call 911!" Carver didn't move. Tyler scrambled up and kicked Ethan in the ribs. Pain exploded. Ethan sucked in air and forced himself upright anyway. Harper tried to wrench free again, but Mason had her wrist locked. He yanked her close, hard, and for a split second, Harper's phone slipped from her grip and hit the ground. Mason looked at Ethan over Harper's shoulder. "You just don't learn." Brent hovered, trembling. "Mason, man, this is—" "Shut up," Mason snapped. "Do your job." Tyler grabbed Harper's arm from behind and tried to slap a zip tie around her wrist. Harper thrashed, elbowing backward. Tyler cursed again. Ethan lunged for Harper's phone on the ground, snatched it up, and hit record with his thumb. The screen shook as he held it out, filming faces, filming hands, filming the zip ties. "Smile," Ethan rasped. "It's all on video." Mason's eyes flashed. "Take it," Mason barked. Tyler moved toward Ethan. Ethan backed up, keeping the camera pointed, forcing them to choose between hurting him and being seen doing it. He yelled again, louder, voice cracking. "Help! Call 911!" A door slammed somewhere far down the road. A dog barked. The sound of a human voice drifted. Someone had heard, but no one had stepped in yet. Carver finally looked over his shoulder, expression annoyed, like Ethan was interrupting his evening. Mason saw it and smirked. "Nobody's coming, hero." Then the night changed. A low rumble rolled in from the far end of Old River Road. Engines, more than one, but not loud, not revving. Controlled. Headlights appeared through the trees, sweeping across the turnout in a slow, deliberate arc. Not police lights, not a random car. Mason's smile faltered. Tyler froze mid-step. Harper's breathing hitched once as she recognized something in that sound. Ethan's stomach dropped for a different reason. Rook had said no noise. This didn't feel like noise. It felt like presence. 2 vehicles pulled up and stopped in a clean line, blocking the exit. Doors opened. Men stepped out in plain clothes, moving with calm purpose, phones already up, cameras already recording. And behind them, farther down the road, red and blue lights flared suddenly in the trees. State Patrol, not county, coming fast, closing the distance. Deputy Carver's head snapped around too late. Mason tightened his grip on Harper like he could still turn her into leverage. Ethan held the phone steady, arm shaking, filming as the first state cruiser broke into the clearing and its spotlight slammed onto Mason's face. The state cruiser's spotlight pinned Mason Klein like a bug on a board. For the first time all night, his confidence cracked, just a hairline fracture. But Ethan saw it. "Hands!" a trooper barked as he stepped out, flashlight in one fist, the other hovering near his holster. "Hands where I can see them!" Tyler froze mid-breath. Brent lifted his palms so fast it looked like surrender was his only instinct. Mason didn't let go of Harper. He tightened his grip like she was still his best move. "Easy," Mason said, forcing a laugh that sounded thin. "We're just talking." Harper's face was rigid, but her eyes stayed locked forward. Not on Mason, on the troopers. She was waiting for the exact second she could move without getting hurt. Ethan held his phone up, recording with a shaking arm. He kept it aimed at Mason's hand clamped around Harper's wrist and the white zip ties on the dirt. A second state cruiser rolled in, then a third. Tires cutting through mud. Red and blue lights splashed across the boathouse boards, across Tyler's truck, across Deputy Carver's county SUV like it didn't belong. Carver finally stepped away from his vehicle, irritation turning into something sharper when he realized these weren't his people. "What the hell is this?" Carver called, trying to sound authoritative. "This is county jurisdiction." The lead trooper, tall, older, calm, didn't even look at him first. His eyes stayed on the teenagers. "Let her go," the trooper said to Mason, voice flat. "Now." Mason's jaw worked. He glanced at Carver like he expected rescue. Carver took a step forward. "Listen, this is a misunderstanding. Kids messing around. We don't need—" The trooper finally turned his head, slow and deliberate, and stared straight at Carver. "Deputy Carver, step back, right now." Carver stiffened. "You can't order me." "I can," the trooper said, cutting him off, "because I'm here under state authority on a complaint involving intimidation, obstruction, and possible abduction. You're not in charge of anything tonight." Carver's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flicked toward Mason again. A decision flashed across his face, fight or retreat, and he chose retreat with a bitter jerk of his chin. The trooper nodded once to another officer. "Get Carver away from them. Separate." A second trooper moved toward Carver with controlled speed. "Deputy, hands off your belt. Walk with me." Carver bristled, but he walked. Mason's breathing sped up. He tried to pull Harper closer, using her body as a shield without admitting it. Ethan's voice came out raw. "He has zip ties. He grabbed her." "Sir, step back," a trooper snapped at Ethan without looking, because Ethan was still too close to the mess. Ethan stumbled back 2 steps, ribs screaming. He kept filming anyway. "Last chance," the lead trooper said to Mason. "Let her go." Harper moved first. The moment Mason's focus shifted toward the trooper, Harper twisted her wrist the way she'd been trying to earlier, harder, cleaner, and stomped down on Mason's foot with everything she had. Mason yelped, grip loosening for a fraction. That fraction was enough. Harper yanked free and stumbled backward. A trooper caught her by the shoulders and guided her behind him like a shield. Mason's face changed instantly, panic turning to rage because the leverage was gone. Tyler took 1 step toward Harper. "Don't," a trooper warned, and Tyler stopped like he hit an invisible wall. The lead trooper pointed. "Mason Klein, you're being detained. Turn around." Mason tried to smile again. "Detained? For what?" "She came here." "Turn around," the trooper repeated, voice harder. Mason's eyes darted again, at Tyler, at Brent, at the vehicles blocking the turnout. No exits, no friends with badges left within reach. He turned slowly, still trying to keep his voice smooth. "You're making a mistake." The trooper cuffed him without drama. Tyler's mouth tightened. "This is Bulls. Tyler Reese," another trooper cut in. "Hands behind your back." Tyler hesitated, then complied, like his body knew resistance wouldn't play well on camera. Brent stood shaking, palms still up. I didn't want this," he blurted. A trooper glanced at him. "Then you're going to tell the truth." Ethan finally lowered his phone a little, arm burning. His breathing came in ragged pulls. The pain in his ribs was now a hot, steady throb. Harper stepped out from behind the trooper, eyes wide and furious. She looked at Ethan like she couldn't decide whether to hug him or scream at him. You shouldn't have come, she said, voice tight. Ethan tried to stand straighter and failed. You were here. Harper's throat worked. She swallowed hard. I got a text from an unknown number. It said you were hurt. It said you were at the river. Ethan's stomach dropped. I got a text too. Harper nodded once, grim. So they played both of us. The lead trooper turned toward them, clipboard already out. Miss, are you Harper Dalton? Harper stiffened. Yes. Are you injured? He asked. Harper touched her torn sleeve, her wrist already reddening. No, not badly. The trooper nodded, then looked at Ethan. And you're Ethan Cole? Ethan's mouth was dry. Yeah. The trooper's gaze sharpened. You called this in? Ethan hesitated. I told my lawyer. She told the state. I also overheard them at school. I came because, his voice cracked, because I didn't trust the county. The trooper didn't react like that was crazy. He reacted like it was evidence. You have a lawyer? He asked. Ethan pulled the prepaid from his pocket with shaking fingers. Kara Holt, the trooper nodded once. She's on her way. As if summoned, a dark sedan rolled into the turnout behind the cruisers and stopped. Kara stepped out, coat open, hair pulled back, eyes scanning fast. She walked straight to the lead trooper and held up a folder. Sergeant, she said, breath controlled. Formal notice filed yesterday, retaliation documented, and now we have attempted restraint with zip ties, a county deputy blocking access, and my client's video. The sergeant accepted the folder without a word and flipped it open like he'd been waiting for it. Rook stayed near the edge of the clearing with two plainclothes men. They didn't approach the kids. They didn't posture. They held their phones up, recording quietly from a distance like witnesses, not soldiers. Carver, now separated near the road, stared at the ground with a trooper beside him. His hands weren't cuffed yet, but he looked smaller anyway. The sergeant turned his head slightly toward Carver. Deputy Carver, were you aware minors were being restrained here tonight? Carver lifted his chin, trying to find his badge again. They weren't being restrained. I was ensuring no one drove into a hazardous area. River roads, there are no cones, the sergeant said calmly. No posted work order, no dispatch log. We'll verify. Carver's jaw tightened. This is political. Kara's voice cut in like steel. It's documented. The sergeant nodded once, then turned back to Harper. Miss Dalton, I need your statement, in your words. What did you receive? What did you believe? And what happened when you arrived? Harper nodded, breathing hard, then spoke clearly. She described the text. The lie about Ethan. The moment Mason appeared. The zip ties. The attempt to grab her. Ethan listened, and the more Harper talked, the more he realized how close they'd come to it going differently. A slip. A hit. A dark river. When Harper finished, the sergeant looked at Ethan. Your video. I need it. Ethan's fingers tightened around the phone. Letting it go felt like handing over the only weapon he had. Kara held out her hand. I'll take custody of the device and provide a forensic copy. Chain of custody stays clean. The sergeant studied her for a beat, then nodded. Do it. Now. Kara took Ethan's phone gently, like it mattered because it did. She powered it down and slid it into an evidence bag she'd brought herself. Ethan exhaled shakily, suddenly empty-handed. Tyler, cuffed near his truck, started talking loud, desperate. This is insane! We didn't do anything! She came here! Brent's voice broke. Stop! Just stop! You had zip ties, Tyler. Tyler whipped his head toward Brent. Shut up! A trooper stepped between them. Not a word. You'll speak when asked. Brent's eyes darted to Ethan and Harper. He looked terrified, but there was something else there too. Regret, and the awareness that Mason had dragged him into a line he couldn't cross and still pretend he was a good kid. The sergeant motioned toward the boathouse. Search the structure. Check for weapons, restraints, anything else. Two troopers moved in, flashlights cutting through gaps in the boards. Dust swirled. The river slapped softly under the pilings. One trooper called out a moment later. Sergeant, found a bag. They emerged holding a black duffel. The sergeant unzipped it with gloved hands. Inside, more zip ties, a roll of duct tape, a cheap prepaid phone, a printed photo of Harper, school ID photo pulled from records. Harper's face went white. Ethan's stomach dropped through the floor. This wasn't improvised. It was planned. The sergeant's eyes hardened. He looked at Mason, still cuffed, still trying to look untouchable. Mason didn't speak now. He just stared, breathing fast because the bag had spoken for him. Kara's voice was quiet but sharp. That's intent. The sergeant nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. It is. Ethan swayed slightly, pain catching up now that the adrenaline was draining. Harper saw it instantly and grabbed his elbow. Sit, she ordered, steering him toward a low stump by the trees. Ethan tried to protest and failed. He sat, ribs on fire. Harper's hands shook as she looked at his face. You're hurt. I'm fine, Ethan lied automatically. Harper's eyes flashed. Stop saying that. Ethan let out a breath that sounded like a laugh but wasn't. Okay. Across the clearing, Kara stepped aside and made a call, voice low, urgent. Ethan couldn't hear the words, but he saw her posture change, stiffen, then sharpen like she'd been handed new information. She turned back toward Ethan fast. Ethan, Kara said, voice tight. Your mother. Someone was just seen near your trailer. Ethan's blood went cold again. Ethan's whole body went cold so fast it felt like he'd been shoved into the river. What? He rasped. Kara's eyes were locked on her phone screen, jaw tight. A neighbor called the clinic backline I used. Someone in a county jacket was seen near your trailer, not knocking, not talking, just walking the perimeter. Ethan shoved himself up from the stump, pain knifing through his ribs. My mom's alone. Ethan, Kara said sharply, stepping into his path. Listen to me. You don't run in blind. That's what they want. I'm not leaving her, he snapped, voice cracking. Harper grabbed his sleeve. We go smart, she said, breathing hard. We go with people who can legally be there. The state sergeant turned as if he'd been listening the whole time. Address? Ethan blinked. What? Your address, the sergeant repeated, already motioning to one of his troopers. If there's a credible intimidation report tied to an active case, we respond. Ethan's throat tightened. He forced the words out. Cedar Ridge Trailer Park, Lot 14. The trooper relayed it over the radio, static, then a calm reply. Copy. Kara's voice cut back in. Sergeant, I want it on record that county units have already engaged in harassment and intimidation. If anyone from county touches that trailer, I want body cam and names. The sergeant nodded once. You'll have it. Ethan's hands shook. He looked at Rook at the edge of the clearing. Rook didn't look dramatic. He just said, I've got eyes close. Send them, Ethan said, and hated the desperation in his voice. Rook answered the way he always did, short, controlled. Already did. Kara took Ethan by the elbow. You're in pain. You're not driving. You're riding with me. Ethan tried to argue, but another wave of rib pain shut his mouth. Harper stepped closer. I'm coming. Kara's gaze snapped to her. No. Harper didn't flinch. Yes, they lured me. They'll leverage me again. I'm not leaving him to handle this alone. Kara held Harper's stare for half a second, then looked at the sergeant. We're going. We stay out of the way. You handle contact. The sergeant's answer was flat. Stay behind my units. They moved fast. Kara's sedan followed behind two state cruisers, red and blue strobing through trees and darkness. Ethan sat in the passenger seat, one hand pressed to his ribs, the other clenched around the prepaid phone like it could anchor him. Harper was in the back, silent and rigid. Ethan tried his regular phone and got one bar, then nothing. He tried again, no signal. The trailer park always had dead spots, and tonight it felt intentional, like the town itself wanted him cut off. Kara drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes sharp, voice low. When we arrive, you do not run, you do not engage, you let the troopers do their job. Ethan's voice came out raw. If she's hurt, she won't be, Harper said, but it sounded like she was trying to convince herself too. The cruisers turned onto Cedar Ridge's cracked entrance road. Porch lights and cheap string lights glowed in patches. A dog barked, curtains twitched. People sensed trouble the way animals sense storms. Ethan's chest tightened when he saw Lot 14. His trailer was dark, no living room light, no TV glow, just a thin rectangle of black. Mom, Ethan whispered, already reaching for the door handle. A trooper's spotlight swept the lot. It caught movement near the side of the trailer, a figure stepping back into shadow. Contact right side, a trooper said over the loudspeaker. Ethan's heart slammed. He saw it too, someone in a jacket, hood up, moving fast along the skirting. Stay in the car, Kara snapped. Ethan didn't hear her. His body moved on pure terror. He shoved the door open and stumbled out, ribs screaming. Ethan, Harper called, then was out of the car too, running after him. A trooper cut between them and the trailer, arm out like a barrier. Back! Back now! Ethan's voice broke. My mom is in there! The sergeant's voice boomed from behind. Secure the perimeter! Two troopers sprinted along the trailer's sides, flashlights slicing the dark. One cut toward the back steps, another covered the front door. Ethan tried to push forward again, and the trooper blocked him with a firm hand. Not rough, just immovable. "Ma'am," the sergeant called to Kara. "Is your client's mother ambulatory?" Kara answered fast. "Chronic respiratory condition." "She can move, but slowly." "Copy," the sergeant said. Ethan heard a thump from the rear of the trailer, a shout, then the sound of running feet on gravel. "Stop!" a trooper yelled. A figure burst into the open and sprinted toward the park's exit. The spotlight caught him for a split second. County jacket, jeans, hands gloved. Not a teen, an adult. The man ran like he'd done this before. A trooper chased. "On foot, eastbound!" Ethan's lungs burned. He tried to follow and nearly folded from pain. Harper grabbed him around the waist, holding him up. "Look at me," she said hard. "Don't fall. Stay here." Ethan's eyes were locked on the trailer. "Mom," he kept whispering, like saying it could keep her alive. The rear door of the trailer jerked open and a trooper stepped out, flashlight up. "Ma'am," the trooper called. "Marianne Cole." No answer. Ethan felt the world tilt. "She doesn't hear well," he started. The trooper disappeared back inside. Kara moved in beside Ethan, voice tight but controlled. "Breathe, he's checking." Ethan couldn't. His throat felt sealed. Inside the trailer, a crash sounded, like a drawer being yanked open, then another. "They were in her house," Harper whispered, fury and fear mixing into something sharp. "They went after her." Ethan's hands curled into fists so tight his fingers went numb. The front door opened suddenly. A trooper stepped out with Marianne behind him. She was upright, barefoot, wrapped in a thin robe. Her hair was mussed and her face was pale with terror, but she was alive. Ethan's knees almost buckled from relief. "Ethan!" Marianne cried, voice breaking. He tried to rush her, and the trooper stepped aside enough to let him through. Ethan crossed the gravel in 2 uneven strides and caught his mother in his arms, careful with her fragile ribs, careful with his own. "I'm here," he whispered. "I'm here." Marianne clutched him like he might vanish. "Someone was inside," she choked. "They were quiet. I thought it was you." Then I heard the back door. Her breath hitched into a cough. Kara was already at her side, pulling an inhaler from Marianne's pocket with practiced calm. "Slow breaths," she said. "We've got you." The sergeant stepped up, eyes scanning the trailer, then the lot. "Ma'am, did you see the intruder?" Marianne shook her head, shaking. "I saw a shadow. I heard drawers. Then the back door slammed." Ethan pulled back just enough to see her face. "Did they take anything?" Marianne's eyes went wide like she remembered something and hated it. "The medicine," she whispered. "They were in the cabinet. They took the new bag." Ethan's stomach dropped again. Harper's voice went icy. "They're trying to make him desperate." Kara's jaw tightened. "And to create a medical emergency. That's not harassment. That's coercion." The sergeant nodded, grim. "Search the trailer. Photograph everything. We treat this as evidence." A trooper moved past them toward the kitchen. Another stepped to the back steps and radioed. "Forced entry. Back latch damaged." Ethan stared at the trailer like it had betrayed him. His mom's hands trembled against his hoodie. The trooper in the kitchen called out, "Sergeant, there's something here." Ethan's blood went hot. "What?" The trooper stepped out holding a clear plastic baggie between gloved fingers. Inside was a small pile of white powder. Ethan froze. His mouth went dry. Kara's voice cut sharp and immediate. "Nobody touches that except forensics. Photograph it where it was found. Full chain of custody." The sergeant's face hardened as he looked from the baggie to Ethan, then back to the trailer. "Where was it?" he asked. "Under the sink," the trooper said, "taped behind the pipe." Ethan felt sick. He knew what this was. He'd seen it in town stories, how people got turned into criminals without ever doing a crime. Kara turned to Ethan, eyes fierce. "Do not say a word, not one." Ethan couldn't speak anyway. His mother stared at the baggie, confused and terrified, then looked up at him like she couldn't understand how her kitchen had become a crime scene. The sergeant stepped closer to Kara. "This is a plant." Kara nodded once. "Yes." The sergeant's jaw clenched. "Then we just caught someone escalating." Ethan's ears rang. Harper's hand was on his shoulder now, steadying him as if she could keep him from falling apart. A trooper jogged back from the road, breath hard. "Sergeant, suspect vehicle sighted near the exit. County unit, moving." The sergeant's head snapped up. "Go." Ethan turned toward the dark entrance road, his mother still clinging to him, and saw headlights surge at the far end of the trailer park, fast, fleeing, before the state cruiser's engine roared to life to chase it. The state cruiser tore out of the trailer park like it had been waiting for permission. Gravel, spit. Porch lights flickered as neighbors stepped to windows and pulled back fast when they saw the strobes. Ethan stood in the cold, holding his mother upright, her body trembling against his chest. Kara had Marianne's inhaler in one hand and her phone in the other, already speaking in a low, clipped rhythm that sounded like control. "Sergeant, I want that baggie photographed in place and sealed, full chain," she said, "and I want the entry point documented before anyone touches it." The sergeant nodded once, then barked orders. 2 troopers moved into the trailer with cameras. Another stayed at the steps, writing. No one smiled, no one made jokes. This wasn't Black River County anymore. This was the state, and the air felt different because of it. Marianne coughed hard, then sucked in a shallow breath. Ethan tightened his hold. "Mom, look at me," he whispered. "Breathe slow." Her eyes were wet and unfocused. "They took it," she rasped. "Why would they take your—" "Don't talk," Ethan said, voice breaking. "Just breathe." Harper stood to his right, fists clenched so tight her knuckles looked white under the flashing lights. She stared at the open kitchen window like she wanted to tear the whole trailer apart with her hands. Kara stepped closer, lowering her voice for Ethan alone. "This is exactly what we thought they'd do, plant and squeeze. But they made a mistake tonight." Ethan swallowed. "What mistake?" "They did it while state units are already on scene," Kara said. "They did it while you're already an active complainant, and they left a trail." A trooper appeared in the doorway holding a small plastic evidence bag. Inside, torn duct tape, fibers from a glove, a tiny sliver of black rubber. "Sergeant," the trooper called, "Backlatch has fresh pry marks. No signs of forced entry on the front. Whoever it was knew to come in quiet." The sergeant took it, eyes hard. "Bag it, photograph, send to forensics." Ethan's phone, his regular one, buzzed once in his pocket even though he hadn't felt it ring all night. He didn't pull it out. He didn't want whatever poison was inside that screen. Then, from the entrance road, the sound of engines rose again. Fast, closing. A second set of red and blue lights swept into the park. Not county, another state unit. They slid to a stop near the entrance, blocking it. A trooper got out and jogged toward the sergeant. "We got eyes on the fleeing unit," he said, breath visible in the cold. "It bailed out 2 miles east. Driver ditched the vehicle and ran into brush. We're searching." The sergeant's face didn't change. "Vehicle secured?" "Yes, sir," the trooper said. "It's a county pool vehicle. Plate matches Black River Sheriff's Office." Ethan felt his stomach drop so hard he thought he might vomit. Harper's eyes flashed toward him. Kara's jaw tightened. "Say that again." "Black River Sheriff's Office vehicle," the trooper repeated. "We've got it." The night went quiet in Ethan's head, like the world had narrowed to that one sentence. The sheriff hadn't sent a friend. He hadn't sent a random deputy. He'd sent his own machine. Ethan looked down at his mother's face. Marianne was staring at the lights like she couldn't process the idea that the law had broken into her home. Harper's voice came out low and shaking with anger. "He tried to frame you." Ethan couldn't speak. His throat felt sealed. The sergeant turned toward Kara. "This goes beyond school bullying." Kara nodded. "It already did when he showed up at my client's porch at night." The sergeant looked at Ethan. "Ethan Cole, do you consent to a search of your residence for additional planted materials?" Ethan blinked. "Yes," he managed. "Yes, search everything." "Good," the sergeant said. "We clear your name with sunlight." Inside the trailer, troopers moved methodically, photographing cabinets, pulling out drawers, checking vents, lifting couch cushions, documenting everything before touching. It was slow torture watching strangers go through his life, but Ethan understood why it mattered. Sloppy searches were how lies survived. A trooper called out from the hallway. "Sergeant, medicine cabinet is open. Looks like someone rummaged. No meds inside." Ethan's hands clenched. "They took her prescription," he said, voice raw. Kara immediately turned to the sergeant. "Medical theft. Coercion. Add it." The sergeant nodded once and gestured to another trooper. "Call EMS. We're not risking a respiratory event." Marianne shook her head weakly. "No hospital." Ethan bent closer. "Mom, please," he whispered. "Just let them check you." Her fingers dug into his hoodie. She was scared of hospitals because they meant bills and judgments and pity. Ethan felt guilt burn behind his eyes, but he didn't let go. Headlights flashed again at the edge of the park. This time, a familiar plain sedan rolled in, Rook's car. He didn't park close. He stayed a respectful distance, engine off, lights out, like he didn't want to turn this into something it didn't need to be. He got out slowly and walked toward Kara, hands visible. The sergeant's gaze snapped to him immediately. 2 troopers shifted, ready. Kara lifted one hand. "He's with me," she said, firm. "Witness, not a participant." Rook stopped where Kara indicated and didn't step closer. His eyes went to Ethan and Marianne. A flicker of something, anger maybe, crossed his face, then vanished. "I've got confirmation," Rook said quietly to Kara. "The county unit that ran. It left from the sheriff's lot." Kara's eyes sharpened. "How do you know?" Rook's voice stayed level. "Camera across the street from the lot, timestamp. Driver wore a county jacket and gloves." The sergeant heard enough. He turned to one of his troopers. "Get a warrant request moving. For Sheriff Willis's office, his vehicle logs, dispatch records, camera system, all of it. Now." Ethan's heart hammered. For the first time, he felt the ground shift under the sheriff's feet. Then a voice cut through the park from behind them, loud, indignant. "What the hell's going on here?" Sheriff Willis had arrived. He stepped out of a black SUV, not a marked unit, face set in public outrage. He looked at the troopers, looked at Ethan holding his mother, then let his eyes widen like he was the hero arriving late. "Sergeant," Willis called, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "this is my county. I didn't authorize state units to swarm a trailer park." The sergeant turned slowly and faced him like a wall. "Sheriff Willis, we're operating under state authority tied to an active complaint and an incident tonight involving attempted abduction and obstruction." Willis's smile held, but his eyes flicked toward Kara, warning. "I don't know what you think you have, but you're making a spectacle." Kara stepped forward. "A spectacle is planting narcotics under a sick woman's sink." Willis laughed too fast. "That's a serious accusation." "It's documented," Kara said. "And the vehicle that fled this park is registered to your office." For a fraction of a second, Willis's expression froze, not shock, calculation. "That's impossible," Willis said smoothly. "My vehicles are accounted for." The sergeant didn't blink. "Then you won't mind if we verify. We've secured the unit. We're obtaining warrants." Willis's jaw tightened. He took one step toward Ethan, tone softening like he was trying a different approach. "Ethan, son, you look exhausted. You're hurt. You've been through a lot. Let me handle this. You don't want to get yourself tangled up in something bigger than you." Ethan's hands shook. He stared at Willis and heard the porch voice again. "Shame about her meds. You're not the kind of kid who wins these fights." Ethan pulled his mother closer and forced the words out. "You came to my house at night." Willis's smile thinned. "To check on you." "You used my mom's name," Ethan said, voice cracking but loud enough. "You talked about her medicine." Marianne flinched at the sound of it, confusion and fear crossing her face. Willis's eyes flashed, then softened again like a mask slipping back in place. "You're upset. That's understandable." The sergeant stepped between them. "Sheriff Willis, you will not speak to witnesses without counsel present." Willis looked at him. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," the sergeant said flatly. "Step back." For a beat, Willis looked like he might challenge it. Then he forced a laugh and lifted his hands. "Fine, do your thing, but I'm going to be making calls." Kara's tone was ice. "So are we." Willis turned, eyes scanning faces, and they landed on Harper for the first time. His smile returned, slow. "Miss Dalton." Harper didn't answer. Willis's gaze lingered on her bruised wrist, then slid back to Ethan. "This town eats kids alive," he said softly. "You sure you want to be the one it starts with?" Ethan felt Harper's hand on his shoulder, steadying him again. He didn't answer. He couldn't trust his voice. An ambulance siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. The sergeant spoke to Willis like he was reading a verdict early. "Sheriff, you're going to wait over there. You're not interfering. Any interference is obstruction." Willis's smile tightened into something that wasn't a smile at all. He walked away slowly, but his eyes never stopped moving, never stopped measuring who was watching. Ethan held his mother as EMS pulled into the lot and stepped out with a stretcher. Marianne started crying quietly when they lifted her onto it. Ethan leaned close and whispered, "I'm right here," over and over like a prayer. Kara moved beside the stretcher, speaking to the medic, handing over Marianne's medical info she'd already gathered. Harper stood near Ethan, face pale and furious. Rook stayed back watching the sheriff. Willis stood under a flickering streetlight with his hands in his pockets, looking calm for anyone who didn't know what calm was hiding. But Ethan knew. And as the ambulance doors closed, Ethan saw it clearly. The sheriff wasn't here to help. He was here to make sure fear stayed louder than truth. The ambulance doors shut with a heavy thud, and for a moment, Ethan couldn't move. The red and blue lights kept strobing across the gravel like the world was still in crisis, even after the stretcher rolled away. Kara stayed beside him until the paramedics pulled out. "You're going to the hospital," she told Ethan, not asking. "You don't leave your mother alone with a county system circling her." Ethan's throat felt raw. "They took her meds." "They wanted her to panic," Harper said, voice shaking with rage. "They wanted you to break." The state sergeant didn't look at Harper when he answered, but his tone was firm. "We treat the theft as part of the intimidation pattern. We treat the baggie as evidence of an attempted frame. And we treat the fleeing unit as probable cause." Sheriff Willis stood under the flickering light like he was waiting for someone to hand him control back. When the sergeant's troopers started photographing Willis's SUV and asking for his phone number and unit logs, Willis's calm began to crack at the edges. "You're out of your lane," Willis said, the smile gone now. "You're going to regret making enemies in this county." The sergeant's reply was flat. "Sheriff, step back." Willis's eyes flicked to Ethan. "You think they're saving you," he said softly, almost conversational. "They'll move on, and you'll still be the trailer kid who made a mess." Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't trust himself not to explode. Kara did it for him. "Any further contact with witnesses is interference. Walk away." Willis held her stare, then turned and walked to his SUV like a man who still believed walking away meant he was in charge of leaving. 10 minutes later, Kara's car followed a state cruiser to the hospital. Harper came too, insisting without raising her voice. Ethan sat in the back seat, hunched, one arm tight across his ribs, watching the town blur past and wondering how many people in those houses had always known. At the emergency entrance, the hospital staff moved fast once they saw the state trooper escorting them. Marianne was taken in, oxygen placed, monitors attached. Ethan stood at the doorway until a nurse gently guided him to a chair. Kara knelt in front of him. "I need you steady," she said. "You're going to give one more statement tonight. Not about your mother, about what you overheard at school. The boathouse plan. Deputy Carver. The texts." Ethan swallowed. "They'll say I made it up." "They can say anything," Kara replied. "But you didn't just say it. You said it before it happened, to council, and it triggered a state response. That timing matters." Harper sat beside Ethan, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I still have the text," she said. "The one that lured me," Kara nodded once. "Don't delete anything. Don't forward it. We preserve it." A trooper walked up with a small device bag. "Ma'am, we can take a forensic image of both phones, tonight." Kara's eyes sharpened. "Do it." Ethan watched as his world became evidence, timestamps, messages, call logs. It was terrifying and comforting at the same time. Terrifying because everything could be twisted, comforting because this time there would be a record. An hour later, Marianne's breathing stabilized. The doctor spoke in a low voice about stress, about medication interruption risks, about needing a refill immediately. Ethan felt shame flood him like a wave. "I can't," he started. Kara cut in smoothly. "You'll bill it. And the missing prescription is part of an active investigation. We'll handle the pharmacy and insurance escalation." The doctor nodded like he'd seen this before, poor families drowning in paperwork, and left. Ethan finally stepped into Marianne's room. She looked smaller under the hospital blanket, cheeks pale, eyes glassy. She reached for him. "Ethan." "I'm here," he whispered, taking her hand. Her fingers trembled. "They were inside our home." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I know." Marianne stared at him, fear and something like apology mixing in her eyes. "Did you do something to make them mad?" Ethan's throat tightened. He couldn't lie to her anymore. "I stopped some kids at school from hurting someone," he said softly, "and the adults protecting them didn't like it." Marianne's eyes filled. "I raised you to be good, not to get hurt." Ethan swallowed hard. "Being good is what got hurt," he whispered, then hated how bitter it sounded. Marianne squeezed his hand. "Then don't be alone," she said, voice shaking. "Promise me you won't be alone." Ethan nodded. It was the only promise he could keep. Outside the room, the state sergeant approached Kara with a folded warrant copy. Judge signed, he said. Sheriff's office, school camera system. County dispatch logs. Kara's face tightened with relief that looked almost like anger. Good. The sergeant's eyes flicked to Ethan. We're moving now. Your presence isn't required, but your safety is. Ethan stared at him. My safety? The sergeant didn't sugarcoat it. You're a witness who just disrupted a corrupt local chain. That makes you a target. Harper stood. He's not staying alone, Kara nodded. I'm placing him in a safe location tonight, documented. The sergeant's phone buzzed. He glanced down, expression hardening. We just pulled the county unit's onboard computer. It pinged at Cedar Ridge 20 minutes before the break-in. Kara's voice went cold. So it's not a rogue deputy. It's deliberate. The sergeant's answer was the closest thing to emotion Ethan had seen from him. Yes. By midnight, news moved faster than anyone expected. A nurse whispered that people were calling the front desk, asking if the sheriff was really under state investigation. A security guard mentioned a reporter hanging around the entrance. Kara pulled Ethan aside. Do not speak to anyone, she warned. Not because we're hiding, because we control timing. Harper's phone lit up with a message. Her face tightened. My dad wants me home. Not tonight, Kara said immediately. Too visible, too many eyes. Harper exhaled sharply, then nodded. For the first time, Ethan saw how hard it was for her to accept being protected. At 1:17 a.m., Rook appeared in the hospital hallway, alone, hands visible, posture calm. He didn't go near Marianne's room. He didn't act like he belonged. He simply approached Kara and spoke quietly. School server's not wiped, he said. Miles says it was accessed remotely around noon. Admin login. Same time the preservation demand hit. Kara's eyes narrowed. Garner. Or someone using his credentials, Rook said. Either way, it's traceable. Ethan stared at Rook. You're everywhere. Rook looked at him, expression unreadable. We're paying attention, Kara checked her watch. Ethan leaves with me in 10. Harper, you're coming too. Separate vehicles, no straight route. Ethan's stomach twisted. What about my mom? Kara's voice softened slightly. She's safe here. State has her location. County can't touch her without cameras now. Ethan nodded, but it felt like walking away from a part of himself. As they moved through the back exit, Ethan caught sight of a man near the vending machines, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. He looked up too fast, then looked away. Harper saw him as well. Press, she murmured. Kara didn't stop. Let them film us walking, she said. They won't film who broke into a sick woman's home. Outside, 2 state troopers waited in an unmarked vehicle, engines running. Ethan slid into Kara's car with Harper, heart still racing. As they pulled out, Kara's phone buzzed with a new message. Her eyes scanned it, and her face changed. Tight, satisfied, controlled. What? Ethan asked. Kara didn't look away from the road. State units just entered the sheriff's office, she said, and Sheriff Willis's personal phone was served with a preservation order. Harper let out a slow breath. So he can't erase it. Kara's voice was flat. He can try, but trying becomes another charge. Ethan stared out at the dark streets of Black River and felt something unfamiliar move in his chest. Not hope, something sharper, the sense that the cage had a crack in it now, and the crack was widening. Ethan didn't sleep. Not really. He lay on a couch in a small, clean guest room Kara used for late nights. No family photos, no clutter, just a lamp and a folded blanket that smelled like detergent instead of fear. Harper sat in a chair by the window for an hour, scrolling through her phone without reading, eyes flicking up every time a car passed outside. At 6:11 a.m., Kara's phone rang. She answered on the first ring. Yes, understood. Send it, she said, voice tight and controlled. She hung up and looked at them. State investigators pulled dispatch records, she said. Carver's construction block on Old River Road was never logged. No work order, no call, nothing. Harper's jaw clenched. So he's done. He's exposed, Kara corrected. That's different. Exposed men either fold or get desperate. Ethan sat up, ribs aching. What about my mom? Kara didn't sugarcoat it. She's stable. Hospital issued an emergency refill, and the state asked the hospital to hold her location private from county requests. Ethan's chest loosened by a millimeter. Not relief, just oxygen. Kara slid her laptop toward him. On the screen were headlines from local sites and a clip from a TV station 2 counties over. Grainy footage of state cruisers at Cedar Ridge, words like investigation and allegations, and sheriff's office scrolling beneath. "They're already spinning it," Ethan said. "They can spin," Kara replied. "They can't undo timestamps." By noon, the first domino fell in public. School district emailed parents about a serious incident and external review. Vice Principal Garner was placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. Coach Ward didn't show up for practice. Mr. Dennison's classroom sat empty with a substitute teacher who wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Harper read each update like she was swallowing nails. "They knew," she said quietly. "All of them." Ethan didn't answer. He was watching the bigger picture form, how the town worked when nobody challenged it, and how fast it shook when someone finally did. At 2:03 p.m., Kara got the call she'd been waiting for. She put it on speaker because Ethan deserved to hear it. "Ms. Holt," the state investigator said, voice clipped. "We executed the warrants. We recovered deleted school footage fragments from the recorder's drive. Not complete, but enough to show initial contact. We also recovered logins indicating remote access attempted after your preservation notice." Kara's eyes narrowed. "And the sheriff's office?" A pause. "We recovered communications between Deputy Carver and a number linked to Sheriff Willis's personal device. We're processing additional data. Sheriff Willis has been placed on administrative restriction pending further action." Ethan's throat tightened. "Restriction?" Kara's voice stayed steady. "What does that mean, specifically?" "It means he's been ordered to surrender department credentials and weapons pending investigation," the investigator replied. "He is not authorized to act in an official capacity." Harper covered her mouth for a second, eyes wide. Ethan's hands shook, and he hated that they shook. Kara didn't celebrate. She just nodded once like a builder checking a foundation. "Thank you. Send everything in writing." When the call ended, the room went silent. Ethan stared at the wall, trying to understand that the man who'd stood on his porch and said his mother's name like a threat couldn't flash a badge today and make people obey. Harper exhaled slowly. "He's not untouchable." "No," Kara said. "He's just been pretending he is." That night, state investigators arrested Deputy Carver first. Not dramatic. No sirens, no parade. Just handcuffs outside his apartment, a signed warrant, and a neighbor filming through blinds. Carver's face on the evening news looked like someone who'd finally realized the badge wasn't armor when the wrong eyes were watching. The next morning, Councilman Klein's office was searched. Then, the school board announced an emergency session. Then, Mason Klein didn't show up to school. Ethan heard rumors before he saw facts. Mason's father yelling at the district. Tyler's family suddenly considering relocation. Brent Haskins crying in the principal's office and asking for a lawyer. Kara didn't let Ethan feed on rumors. "Facts only," she kept repeating. "Facts win." 2 weeks later, the facts landed like a hammer. Sheriff Willis was charged, official misconduct, obstruction, evidence tampering, and coercion related to the break-in and attempted frame. The state investigator didn't smile on TV. He didn't need to. The charges did the smiling for him. In school, it happened differently. One morning, Ethan walked in and felt the absence like a pressure release. No Mason leaning on lockers, no Tyler laughing too loud. Kids still whispered, but now the whisper had a different flavor. Caution. Linda Price passed Ethan in the hallway and didn't stop, but she brushed her fingers lightly against his arm in a small, silent gesture. The kind of gratitude adults give when saying it out loud still scares them. Harper returned to classes with Kara's office on speed dial and state attention hovering in the background. She didn't act like a victim. She acted like someone who had survived a lesson and would never forget it. One afternoon, Ethan found Harper sitting alone on the bleachers after school, staring at the empty field. "You okay?" he asked. Harper didn't look at him at first. "I hate that it took all this," she said, "for people to do the obvious thing." Ethan sat a few steps away. "They weren't going to," he said. Harper turned, eyes bright with anger that had nowhere to go. "Then why did you?" Ethan swallowed. The answer felt simple and heavy. "Because you look trapped," he said, "and I know what trapped looks like." Harper's face softened just slightly. "My dad wanted to meet you," she said. Ethan stiffened. "I'm not joining anything." Harper shook her head once. He doesn't want you to join. He wants you to know not everyone pays you back with fists. A week later, Ethan stood in a small hospital room again, this time not in panic. Marianne was sitting up, color back in her cheeks, paperwork in her lap. A social worker spoke with Kara on the phone, confirming coverage for a longer treatment plan. The emergency refill had become a stable prescription route, documented and protected. When Marianne was discharged, Ethan walked her out into sunlight that didn't feel hostile for the first time in months. Outside the hospital, a black SUV waited at the curb. Gage Dalton stepped out. He didn't wear a uniform, no patches, no performance. Just a tall man with steady eyes and hands that looked like they'd built things and broken things in equal measure. Ethan's spine tightened anyway. Gage looked at Marianne first. "Ma'am," he said politely, "I'm sorry someone used you as leverage." Marianne blinked, then nodded, still wary. "Thank you," she managed. Gage turned to Ethan. "You did something most people don't," he said. "You stepped in when it cost you." Ethan's voice came out rough. "I didn't do it for you." Gage nodded once like that was the point. "I know." He reached into his jacket and held out an envelope, not flashy, not thick enough to feel like a bribe. Just paper. Ethan didn't take it. "No." Gage didn't push it into his hand. He held it there calmly. "It's not charity. It's a bridge. Medical support for your mom and an apprenticeship placement at a shop outside county influence. Real work. Real pay. You can say no. You can walk away. But I'm offering, because I'm not going to pretend your courage should leave you broke." Ethan's throat tightened. He looked at his mother. Marianne's eyes were wet, not pleading, just tired of watching her son bleed for doing right. Ethan finally took the envelope with shaking fingers. "If there are strings," Gage cut him off with a small shake of his head. "One string," he said. "You keep being who you are." Harper stood near the SUV, watching, arms folded, eyes steady. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. The moment was too real for that. Ethan nodded once because words didn't fit. That same month, a youth safety program launched quietly in Black River, funded through legal channels fronted by community groups, structured so the sheriff's office couldn't choke it. Kara helped draft it. The district had no choice but to accept oversight. Teachers started showing up in hallways again. Adults began acting like adults when kids were cornered. The town didn't become good overnight, but it changed. On Ethan's first day at the new shop, he walked in wearing clean work gloves and a bruise-free face. His phone buzzed with a message from Harper. "You still owe me a real thank you." Ethan stared at it, then typed back. "You're alive. That's the thank you." He put the phone away, picked up a wrench, and got to work. And for the first time in a long time, the future felt like something he could actually hold. Ethan turned his head just enough to see her. She wasn't crying. She looked furious, like she was trying to learn the rules in real time and hated every one of them. The bell shrieked. Mason glanced at the clock and backed off like he'd finished a chore. "Lucky day," he said to Ethan. "We've got class." He shoved Ethan one last time, hard, then walked away with Tyler and the third guy like nothing happened. The crowd melted with them. Laughter, footsteps, the whole hallway pretending it hadn't watched. Ethan slid down the lockers for a second, breathing through his nose because his mouth hurt too much. Harper crouched, picked up her fallen papers, then looked at him like she couldn't decide whether to thank him or beg him not to make it worse. "Why did you do that?" Ethan swallowed. "Go to class." "They're going to keep doing it," she said. Ethan wiped blood from his lip with his sleeve. "Then don't be alone." Harper's gaze darted down the hall, measuring exits like she'd done it before somewhere else. "You shouldn't be alone either," she said, quieter. "They don't stop when they get bored. They stop when they win." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You know them?" "I know the kind," Harper said. Her voice steadied. "What's your name?" He almost lied. Lying was safer. Then he saw the way she held herself, scared but refusing to fold. "Ethan. Ethan," she repeated like she was locking it into memory. "Thank you, and watch your back." She walked off fast, shoulders squared like armor. Ethan pushed himself up and headed for the nearest bathroom, 2 steps before a hand clamped onto his arm. "Cole, office, now." Vice Principal Garner didn't sound angry. He sounded tired, like Ethan was paperwork. He guided Ethan past the front desk and shut the office door. "Explain," Garner said, already sliding a form across the desk. Ethan stared at it. Apology. His name typed at the bottom. I didn't start it, Ethan said. Garner's mouth twitched. Mason Klein says you got aggressive. That's a lie. Garner tapped the paper. Sign it and we all move on. Ethan's pulse hammered. If he signed, Mason would know the system still belonged to him. If he didn't, Ethan would be the one punished anyway. That was the math of Black River. Ethan pulled the pen closer and wrote his own statement instead. Short, clean, names included. Mason, Tyler, what they did, who hit first. Garner read it, his face tightening as the names appeared. His desk phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then at Ethan, then answered with a voice that went extra smooth. Yes, Sheriff Willis. No, I understand. Yes, sir. Ethan sat very still. Garner hung up and set the receiver down carefully. You want to make enemies you can't afford, he said softly. Ethan met his eyes. They already chose me. The door opened before Garner could answer. Harper walked in. Garner stiffened. Miss Dalton, you're supposed to be in class. Harper didn't look at him. She looked at Ethan's swollen eye and the cut above his brow. Her jaw clenched. Tell him, Garner said, controlled. Harper's hands shook once, then stopped. They cornered me, she said. Mason hit Ethan. Ethan didn't touch them. The room went very still. Garner's smile returned, thin and careful. Thank you. You can go. Harper didn't move. Are you going to punish them? Garner's eyes hardened. Go to class. Harper held Garner's stare for one long beat, then turned to Ethan. I'm not done, she said quietly, like it was a promise, not a threat. Then she left. Garner exhaled through his nose. Go home, he said to Ethan, suspended for the day. We'll revisit this tomorrow. Ethan blinked. Just today? Don't push your luck, Garner said. Ethan left before tomorrow could turn into a week. He didn't go straight home. He couldn't. He needed the shift. O'Brien's car wash sat off Route 12 behind a row of dying bushes. Ethan walked in through the side door, the smell of soap and wet rubber hitting him like routine. His boss, Mr. O'Brien, took one look at his face and swore under his breath. Jesus, kid, what happened? School, Ethan said. I can still work. O'Brien hesitated, then shook his head. I just got a call. Said you're not on the schedule today. Said if I let you on the property, I'll have problems. Ethan's stomach dropped. Who called? O'Brien didn't answer, but his eyes flicked toward the office phone like it could bite. Go home, he said, softer. I'll figure something out. Ethan stood there a second, feeling the floor tilt. Not from the hits, because the truth had weight too. He nodded once, because what else could he do? As he stepped back outside, a truck rolled past, slow. Mason was in the passenger seat. Tyler drove. Tyler leaned out the window just enough for Ethan to hear. Should have signed the apology, Tyler said, smiling. Your mom's gonna love the dark. The truck kept moving like it hadn't said anything at all. By the time Ethan reached the trailer park, his shoulder ached with every step. He slipped inside quietly. His mom sat on the couch with a blanket over her knees, TV low. When she saw his face, the blanket slid to the floor. Ethan, she whispered. I'm fine, he lied immediately. Her hand rose toward his bruised cheek and stopped halfway, afraid of hurting him. She forced a smile that didn't work. Did you eat? Yeah, Ethan said. I'm going to clean up. He locked himself in the bathroom and stared at the mirror, one eye already swelling shut. Blood dried along his lip. He turned on the sink and let the water run until his breathing slowed. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. Ethan stared at it, thumb hovering. He didn't answer. Across town, Harper sat in the back seat of a black SUV with tinted windows. Her backpack rested on her lap like a shield. She kept touching the bruise on her arm as if checking it was real. The SUV turned off the main road and rolled toward a warehouse at the edge of Black River, where the streetlights gave up. Motorcycles lined the front like a steel wall, chrome, black paint, exhaust smell lingering in the cold. The garage door was open. Men in leather vests looked up when Harper stepped inside. A tall man straightened from a workbench, wiping his hands on a rag. Dark hair, silver at the temples, eyes that made the room go quiet without him asking. Harper swallowed hard. Dad. His gaze went straight to the bruise on her arm, then to the torn strap on her bag, then to the faint smear of blood on her cuff that wasn't hers. The man's jaw tightened, slow and controlled. What happened? He said, voice low enough to sound calm and deadly at the same time. To my daughter?